All right, everybody. How are we doing? How are we doing? Y'all doing okay? Gabagool, welcome to the Yonko tier. Thanks for joining. Thanks for the support. Yeah, tomorrow's podcast, you get access to that. Um, yeah. Shoot. Let me open this shit up. Let me just make sure there's no errors like there were that last stream. Still have no idea how that happened. All right. How's everybody doing? LeBron or MJ? LeBron's my favorite player, and I think he's the best basketball player of all time. Um, Michael Jordan is still the greatest basketball player of all time. Simple difference is like greatest is like what you did relative to what was going on in your era. And then best is just assuming that athletes continue to improve and everything like that. Athletes continue to improve, so the best of the modern era will generally be better than the best of the era like 40 years ago. I think that's pretty simple. Messi or Ronaldo, says Diddy Rafu. From what I know of soccer, I think it's Messi is the like pretty undisputed now, like indisputable. I mean, I'm sure everyone can dispute everything, but from my understanding, there was like an era of time where Messi was considered better, but like there was a close to similar faction that argued that Ronaldo was better, and there was like points for and against. But in recent years, Messi's shut the door and basically solidified that he's the best or the greatest, right? So I think that's kind of done, right? Whatever debate there was ended at some point. Isaac Coughlin says Bill Russell got 11 rings though. Yeah, but with qualifiers, which is it's how do I explain this? How great you were relative to the era that you were in, right? But the era that you're in still needs to be a valid era. Bill Russell's era was basically like it's the same reason we don't go all the way back to like George Mikan and shit like that. Because the era is just so irrelevant. The players are so bad, the quality is so bad. And then with Bill Russell, even if you want to argue the 11 rings thing, the problem with that argument is that like Bill Russell would average like 10 points a game or 11 points a game or some shit. So it's not the same as like being Michael Jordan and like actually like, you win 6 rings and, you're dropping like 35, 40 points a game or whatever. Bill Russell was averaging like 11 points a game back in the era where pace was way faster. So like, how people discredit Wilt for scoring 50 points a game and stuff because their argument is that it was too easy to score in that era. So it's like, okay, if it was too easy to score back then the fact that Bill Russell would score like 10 points a game, it's equivalent of like some players scoring 5 points a game today. You just don't talk about that guy. It's not a big deal. Like if he was on a team that won 11 rings, it just shows how busted the team is. It doesn't reflect Bill. Anyway, let's get the stream likes up to 50 real quick. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 5. Do you think God Valley might not live up to readers' imaginations, like the Rocky Port incident or Akainu versus Aokiji? Are some things best left untold? Well, it's not quite the same as those examples, because with those examples, we never even got to see them, right? So it's not like we got to see them and they didn't live up to our imaginations. It's just we still just don't have any, Oda's not showing us anything for those, I think, because he just views it as maybe not worth the screen time. I think Akainu Aokiji, we might still get that, because I think that we could get that flashback, a glimpse of it, from Akainu's end or from Aokiji's end, because we still need to decipher and unravel Aokiji's story. So I think that, and that's a crucial part of his story. That's where he leaves the Marines, so we could get it there. As for the God Valley incident, it's tricky because Oda's never in a flashback shown us like a really full elaborate fight. Like Roger versus Whitebeard, we just got a clash, right? Roger versus Odin was a clash. Odin versus Kaido, we saw one move, right? Which was Odin cutting Kaido. Shiki versus Garp and Sengoku, that was also, off-screened. So, God Valley would be having to break a pretty significant trend if it were not to do that. But I feel like if the trend is going to be broken at any point, it would be with this. It would be this, right? This would be the place where Oda's finally like, okay, I'm going to show you a big battle. My logic for why Oda's always like held off on showing us details of like Roger versus Whitebeard and stuff has always been that Oda doesn't want to give us an elaborate preview of the ceiling of the story. He doesn't want to showcase all of that, right? Because we need to slowly get there and in the modern narrative itself, and discover what the top level looks like, right? But that logic doesn't hold as much now that we're in the final saga. So now we're at a point where it's time for us to start seeing what top level combat looks like. So I think that I think that we are going to do I think that it is more likely that we'll get slightly more elaborate fights here. Not crazy elaborate, but I think we will get some stuff. Blues Tints, thanks for being a thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 32 months, man. Holy shit. Hey Morge, longtime supporter, thankful for all the videos throughout the years. Will Elbaf deliver a climax/ending as cathartic, great/epic as previous arcs like Enies Lobby, Marineford, and Alabasta? I don't think Elbaf necessarily. I think what I'm looking forward to is the final war of One Piece. I think Elbaf is setting up to be a very good arc, but I don't know if it's going to be as dramatic as those, just because it's not the climax of a storyline, those storylines like Enies Lobby, Alabasta, those are the climax of very long-running full sagas, whereas Elbaf, it could segue into the final war. It could be, I don't know if we're we're not really defeating Emu permanently here, presumably. I don't think we're going to take out all the Gods Knights here and everything, so I just think the way it's set up narratively, it would not be possible for it to be as it'll be a bigger scale conflict, obviously, but I don't think it'll have that same sense of climax as some of those other arcs, just because of the way it's set up. But it could be just as good of an arc, just a different feel, Also, let's get the stream likes up to 50 real quick. Bunfagum, thanks for the 7. Good evening, Senor Morge. How long do you think the flashback and arc will last? There seems like there's so much more to cover. Yeah, so initially I thought that it would be 10 chapters max, and that's at a stretch. Now I think it could be more because, so what chapter did it start? Did it start with 1150? Let me see. It started with 1152 or something? It started with 1153, right? Yeah, it started at 1153. Started 1153. I know I'm repeating myself, I'm just thinking. I could see it ending at 1160, but that feels so damn short. And that would mean that the God Valley flashback, we don't really get much out of it. So my hope is that I could see Oda saving the God Valley flashback itself for somewhere else, but the tricky thing is that this flashback concludes after God Valley, It concludes after God Valley. So it would have to be Oda cutting away from he would have to tell us that God Valley happened, and then have the narrator tell us what the aftermath of God Valley was, and then we cut back to Herald and Loki. I don't know if that's going to happen. So if we get the full God Valley incident, maybe it's a full volume, so maybe it is 10 chapters. I feel like predicting anything more than 10 chapters is just risky. One Piece, One Life. Thanks for the 5. Yo, Morge, what do you think about Whitebeard betraying Rox at God Valley and being the reason Roger and Garp got the drop on him? I don't know about betray, because Whitebeard betraying someone is just really, it feels very harsh. think part of it is that Whitebeard doesn't consider Rox to be his captain regardless. You see in chapter 1096 when Whitebeard's walking into battle, he's like, don't order me around, Rox, and stuff like that. I just feel like with Whitebeard, the act of like backstabbing somebody, though, that feels particularly harsh. I prefer that if Whitebeard betrays Rox, I feel like actively fighting against him, I think would be wrong. Unless we find out what Rox is trying to do. I feel like leaving the Rox Pirates and being like, I'm done with this shit, I feel like that would be okay. And I think I could imagine Whitebeard doing that for sure. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 50 real quick. David Zoller says, you should do a top 30 favorite characters next time One Piece is on hiatus. Would that be... Do I vote? Does chat vote? Maybe that'd be fun. Top 30 favorite One Piece characters. I've never done something like that for myself. All right. Oh, wait, no, somebody... Actually, under stream ideas, I have my top 30 favorite One Piece characters. So, did you suggest this to me, or did somebody suggest this to me already recently? Mingo Mango, thanks for the 7. Do you see Imu taking on Zoro and Sanji before Luffy returns, or is it a matter of Imu not wanting to get his hands dirty with mere subordinates? I mean, Imu has so many subordinates up there right now. Between, like, the 2 Gods Knights, I guess, because Imu's possessing one. But between the Gods Knights and then the Army of Giants and Dorian Brogy, I think, I imagine Imu sending Dorian Brogy after Zoro and Sanji might make sense. I think Dorian Brogy are a lot stronger than people think. And yeah, I think they're a lot stronger than people think. And on top of that, they're buffed right now with Dami Reversi. So I actually think that Zoro and Sanji on paper might lose that fight, or have to get stronger to win that fight. Because with Dorian Brogy, Harold has essentially been written as like a pirate king type figure, right? And Dorian Brogy were essentially his wings, you know? Obviously, Harold wasn't a pirate himself, and Dorian Brogy, they sailed around separately doing their own thing. But the way the narrator has phrased it and presented them and everything, it did seem like they were a bit of a trio. And if not for the fact that Harold was king and he had to do kingly duties, he would probably be sailing around with Dorian Brogy. So it sounded like the Dorian Brogy, the giant warrior pirates doing their thing, and then Harold doing his thing. I think those, like, they were kind of like a dual threat, you know, the royal family ship of Elbaf and the giant warrior pirates. Like, the narrator even talks about that. So essentially, like, I think Dorian Brogy, now that I'm looking at them, I feel like they're probably stronger than the standard first mate. Because if you just go back through it, like, a lot of their feats, like, even just lifting that giant sea king skeleton that covered the island back in Little Garden, that was pretty fucking insane. Their attack that destroyed the island-sized goldfish, that was pretty insane. You know, that's an attack that, like, Yonko, like Big Mom, emulate, you know? And then their performance against the Gorosei was basically what I would expect of, like, characters that aren't, like, Admiral level, but are, like, you know, like first mate type characters. And then now they've been Dami Reversi. So I could see Oda setting up for that. On top of that, one thing random I just realized is that Dorian Brogy, when they first are introduced, they both introduce themselves to the Straw Hats as the strongest warrior of Elbaf. And they both claim that throughout Little Garden. Like, I'm the strongest warrior of Elbaf. No, I'm the strongest warrior of Elbaf. That's really strange because they both knew Harold. And they grew up with Harold. I think we all just figured that, okay, Dorian and Brogy were probably the strongest warriors of Elbaf for their time. But now we know that maybe they heard that Harold died. Yeah, maybe they heard that Harold died somehow. But if they heard that Harold died, well, then they should know that Loki is stronger than them too. So, I don't know. They're just delusional. All right. Anyway. Okay, continuing on. Basim El Madawi, thanks for the 5. What if Rox and Roger had a Davy Back Fight over the Kuja Pirates? Also, I think the story is gearing up for God Valley 2.0 between all Yonko crews. I think that there'll be a God Valley 2.0, but I think it'll include all major forces, so I don't know if it'll just be pirates at that point. The same way that the actual God Valley also featured the Marines and the world government. I wonder if like the big finale God Valley will be a huge war, much like that, but even crazier. So if Rox and Roger had a Davy Back Fight over the Kuja Pirates, but neither of them own the Kuja Pirates, right? So wouldn't it need to be a Kuja Pirate like versus Kuja Pirates versus one of their crews? Because they can't just do a Davy Back Fight over the Kuja Pirates when neither of them like are the captains of the Kuja Pirates, right? What do you think of Drake as the grandson of Silver Axe? Asked Elijah Petty. I could see that being a thing. It's just it matters so little if Drake is, the grandson of Silver Axe. I could see it being a thing. I've also seen people say that Silver Axe is like a Marine informant, in which case it's like, oh damn, so that's just what that whole family does. That's it's kind of funny. And on top of that, see Sengoku in chapter 957, he's talking about all the most prominent Rox Pirates, and he mentions Silver Axe. I feel like it'd be weird to mention Silver Axe if Silver Axe was secretly a Marine the whole time, but I don't know. One Piece, One Life, thanks to the 5. Have you noticed the similarities between Kyo and Don Krieg? I could see a random SSB type lore drop about him being Krieg's dad. I'm not even gonna lie, I don't know who Kyo is. Who's Kyo? Let's take a look. Let me take a look. Who's Kyo? Okay, so all the Rox Pirates right now. Oh, Mobster Kyo is future Silver Axe. Oh my god, I completely missed that that's his name. Okay, Kyo. I see some Don Krieg similarities there. I definitely see some Don Krieg similarities. That's actually really funny. It's also interesting this tattoo that so many characters seem to have, like similar to Katakuri. He has a similar, yeah. Don Krieg, last we saw him, is on Pirate Island, which is just an interesting little, I don't know, it just doesn't matter at all. Like, it might be a little SPS thing that it drops, yeah. Fading Phase, thanks for the 2. What is your favorite One Piece villain so far, and why? So I separate One Piece villains into 2 categories. Villains that are, because One Piece follows a very specific story structure, right? So there's villains that are villains who have had their arc. So like arc bosses, right? Like Crocodile, Doflamingo, Kaido, like villains that were the main villain of an individual storyline. We've got those on one side, and then we got villains that are ongoing, recurring villains who we have yet to get a full arc with them as the main antagonist for. So that's like Blackbeard, Emu. You could argue, like, Akainu, I think you could argue for either side, because if you had to pick one character who you would say was, like, the villain of Marineford, I think most people would say Akainu. So Akainu goes to either side. But if we just look at arc villains, if we look at villains as a whole, then my favorite villain in One Piece is Blackbeard. Rox I want to see some more of, but Rox has obviously made, like, a huge impact. If we were to say arc-specific villains, I got Crocodile easily. I think a lot of people got Doflamingo as their favorite arc villain. I think Doflamingo is I just don't rate Doflamingo as highly as a lot of other people rate him, particularly because I was very, very excited for Doflamingo heading into his arc and storyline. Like, Doflamingo was like a fan favorite villain before Dressrosa, like just very, very just a very exciting character, right? Like, so many cool speeches, so many cool moments, the design, the personality, the mysterious abilities. Like, people didn't understand how his Puppet Master stuff worked at that point in time. And the Puppet Master stuff seemed really fucking broken pre-time skip, because, again, this is before we understood hockey and how hockey can be used to combat these sort of things. So, Doflamingo, just really excited for him. Punk Hazard, I was loving when we found out that Doflamingo is going to be our first villain coming out of the, like, our first villain in the next arc coming into the New World. I thought that was like a perfect character to start us off with. That's part of the reason I've said before that Punk Hazard I didn't mind reading weekly, because to me it felt like it's laying down the foundations for everything going forward to be really exciting. Doflamingo, for me, I think I found to be less of an exciting villain than he initially seemed, because the big thing about Doflamingo early on, pre-time skip, is that this dude seemed like like Oda calls him Joker, right? He really felt like the One Piece version of the Joker, like this dude who's just like very he embraces chaos. He's like an agent of chaos in a way. He's like a wild card. He finds everything funny. Nothing really gets to him. It's just like Doflamingo's just floating above all of the turmoil and all of that stuff. Like it felt very much like just a very free, like crazy character, and we have no idea like what are his actual intentions. Like how big of a deal could he actually be? Like how strong is he? A lot of people speculated that Doflamingo was like hiding his strength and was way stronger than he appeared at Marineford, because he just seemed like such a crazy wildcard character. And yeah, again, the speeches just felt very free and very like, yeah, anything could happen. Like the world's a wacky chaos, topsy-turvy place. Like the new era, yada yada. It was just a really, really refreshing vibe. And with Doflamingo, the tricky thing is that was the character concept that was presented early on. And then once we actually got to his storyline, it felt like Oda wanted a different character, in the sense that Doflamingo in Dressrosa turned out to actually be the total opposite of what he was sort of presented at early on. Doflamingo's not this crazy, chaos-loving wild card. It's the opposite. He is a control freak that basically plays this very tight game where he's like trying to have his fingers in a lot of jars, but he's holding everything, like he's holding a lot of the balance of the new world together, right? And that's a very interesting position for him to have, but the type of conflict that it results in is very different than what you would expect when the character was presented to us early on. Like it turns out that Doflamingo is like a very meticulous businessman with like a very careful house of cards that he set up, and like his entire storyline has him on the back foot as he's just like, oh my god, my house of cards is crumbling, I need to like keep everything together. Like basically right off the bat, from the moment the storyline starts, it's Doflamingo basically panicking, shitting himself. He's like, oh no, everything's gone wrong, and he's trying to fix everything, right? So it's a very different vibe than the early character. Like early on, you're getting like legitimate like Joker in One Piece vibes, or like a Hisoka type vibes, or something like that. You get like, we get hints that he's got a business and everything going on, but the sense is that like he doesn't, like he's so relaxed, like he's so above it all, like just stuff works out for him, whatever. It feels more like the swap from revealing that he's not this chaotic character, but actually this very controlling and very like, I need everything to go exactly as I want, like I'm trying to pull everything together, trying to pull all these strings type character. Those are two very different character types. And if you are switching Doflamingo over to the second type of villain, right, and throwing away all of that cool, like, cool sort of like Joker vibes from early on, but you're still calling the character the Joker for some reason, Crocodile fits that template of villain, of this mastermind with everything in the palm of their hands, infinitely better. Because, again, you get to Doflamingo's arc, everything from day one is falling apart for him. He's shitting himself. He's worried. There's a million times throughout that arc that Doflamingo's just like, okay, this isn't going according to plan. This isn't going according to plan. And you just have this guy who's constantly backpedaling from the get-go. As opposed to Alabasta, where Crocodile really felt like a guy who was executing a plan that genuinely seemed impossible to stop. Because they tried to stop Crocodile like 10 times over, and he had backup plans on backup plans on backup plans. He was never rattled, never phased. Never viewed the Rox Pirates as any sort of threat, just an inconvenience. Every single thing the Rox tried to do, there was like a failsafe that Crocodile already had planted in. And it got to a point where like the only way to actually stop Crocodile was Luffy beating up Crocodile and punching him out into the open. Whereas with Doflamingo, the plan fell apart. Like Doflamingo's entire house of cards had fallen apart 40 chapters into the arc. Like, that's when Sugar went off. That's when the birdcage went off. Like, he already was basically, like, nearly on the verge of losing Shichibukai status when the arc began. Everything just went south for him very, very fast. And then he had to do the nuke option on his whole thing that he built less than halfway through the arc. Like, less than halfway through Dressrosa at the 40% mark, Doflamingo was just fucked. And so his grand plan was, like, I'm just going to do the birdcage, and I'll just kill everybody, and we start back from square one, basically. So you're already watching a villain who's in the ruins of his plan from very early on in the storyline. He just never felt anything close to the caliber of villain that Crocodile felt. I think people latch on to the fact that Doflamingo had a good backstory relative to other One Piece villains. I don't think it's an amazing backstory. Like, I think people talk about Doflamingo's backstory like it's like fucking like the best villain backstory in fiction or whatever. It's like a good backstory compared to One Piece backstories for villains, in that One Piece usually doesn't do that much for its villains. So just by simple comparison to like other One Piece characters, you know, it's like it's a better, like other One Piece villains, it's a better villain backstory than they have, right? But that's about it. I don't think, like, by general standards, I find Doflamingo's backstory to be that phenomenal. Anyway, yeah, I mean, it's two things. It's basically like Doflamingo, the character that were initially presented, is to me infinitely cooler than like the fumbling, bumbling guy that we actually got. And the fumbling, bumbling, stressed out, like having a mental aneurysm guy that we got in Dressrosa. And that's basically, yeah, that's the long and short of it. I still think Doflamingo's like a good villain for One Piece. I think the other part of Doflamingo to me not being the best villain is just like Oda also did a lot during his arc to just make him feel like a side boss. Like, which I think was disrespectful to the character. Oda probably planned always for Doflamingo to be like a side boss, but in the arc itself, multiple times, Oda literally has characters talk about how, like, hey, at the end of the day, Doflamingo is just a distraction, or he's just supposed to be a side quest. The main problem is Kaido, so we should focus on Kaido. Oda even ships off half the crew partway through the arc, so we're just dealing with half the crew in Dressrosa. So, like, a lot is done to make it feel like, while this is an important conflict, it's not that important of a conflict. Like, we don't even need half the main characters to experience this. This is, you know, we're going to check off this mission, and then we're going to the main thing, right? I think that's another factor in just it not feeling like Doflamingo for me was like, he wasn't as cool as initially presented. His character, while deeper than the average One Piece villain, isn't that deep. The archetype of villain Oda shifted him over to has already been done a lot better with Crocodile. And then in general, Oda did a lot to like minimize the significance of the conflict that Doflamingo was the main character of. And again, all of this is not to say Doflamingo is a bad villain. He's a very good villain for One Piece. It's just I'm explaining why I don't have him as my number one villain, whereas a lot of people would have him as their number one villain. Crocodile is my number one arc villain. If Akainu counts as an arc villain, I have Akainu as my number one. So Doflamingo's probably 2 or 3. Okay, continuing on. Emperor Beast Kaido, thanks for the 20. Been thinking about the potential ramifications of Thriller Bark being a part of God Valley in the past. That would mean that the 4-arc run, Long Ring, Water 7, and East Lobby Thriller Bark is all thematically tied to Rox in some way. That is a phenomenal point. Yeah, I mean, Oda really was planting all that shit early on in pre-timeskip. That is insane to think about. Yeah, damn. That is a great point. All the traces were there. Like, I was recently rereading, like, Long Ring Longland, just for the video that's about to come out tomorrow, and it's actually insane. In the span of, like, 1.5 chapters, Oda he brings up Davy Back, he establishes for us Davy Back Fights, the existence of Pirates Paradise Island, and the existence of Davy Jones. He drops all of that, like, in the span of 10 pages. That is all pure Rox buildup. All of that is just Rox, like, Oda's establishing the 3 most important things for Rox's character in the future. Not necessarily the most important things, but, like, the 3 pillars of, like, how Rox kind of came up, right? Like, inspired by Davy Jones, built his crew / following through Davy Back Fights, and then established Pirate Island. That's like Rox's origin story. All 3 of those aspects Oda established in one go, right through, right in like across in 10 pages at the start of the Long Ring Longland arc. So the planning is just insane. Tom, thanks for the 2. You get 1 SPS question. What is it? How get shirt? Tom, asking how to get the shirt. A phenomenal question. A phenomenal question. It is the best question one could possibly ask here. Because the shirt is now open. Is it open for... Okay, it's the pre-orders are not open just yet. We're collaborating with new artists for this who reached out. Here we go. Hold on. Yeah. So we're collaborating with Gomu Drop, which is their own Instagram page and everything like that. I'll shout them out later. Yeah, but we got these shirts. They're going to be available August 8th through 22nd. If you want to be alerted for when the shirts officially drop, then just put your email in there. And yeah, there's some good-ass looking shirts. I think we'll also be letting people get stickers and stuff like that. I got all 3 colors of these. I think I lean towards the black, but that's just me because I think I just like the color black. But yeah, if you guys like the shirts, then make sure to go check them out. Anyway, continuing on. If I get one SPS question, what is it? If I get one SPS question and it has to be answered, it would be very simple. It would actually be the simple. It would be the SPS question that answers. If Oda has to answer it, right? He's obligated to answer it. It would be the SPS question that answers almost all of the most debated topics in One Piece. Okay, I would ask Oda, give us your top. You know what? I'd be very thorough. Give us your top 50 all-time strongest One Piece characters ranked in order. Done. That's it. That's my question. With that, almost all relevant fucking debates in the story are just over. If he answers that. Like, assuming he's obligated to answer that. It's all over. I was thinking, like, what do I specifically ask? Do I ask, like one specific power scaling question or something, or do I just knock it all out in one go? He gives us our top 30, we're done. And watch it be the most bizarre top 30 ever. Turns out, like, Silver Axe was always, like, top 5 or some shit like that. Turns out, like, Harold was actually the strongest. He'd give us a troll answer. Yeah, he probably would. But, you know, if he's forced to give real answers, that's what I would ask. If he's got the option of giving troll answers, well, then any question I ask is, like, open for him to spin. Julian Reed, thanks for the 5. Harold wasn't a warrior anymore, and Loki was as good as dead, so I think that would make them the strongest warriors by process of elimination, maybe lol. I don't know if they knew, but they would need to get the news, right? Because they didn't know that Harold wasn't a warrior anymore, right? Let's get the stream likes up to 100 real quick. Because that also reminds me of like last stream, like the whole Kaido thing was coming up or whatever. Like, well, Kaido wasn't actually overrated and stuff like that. And some people even bring up that like Kaido calls himself the strongest. It's like, what? That doesn't mean jack shit. Don Creek called himself the fucking strongest. And you might be like, well, Kaido, like, at least he has context. He's seen other characters, so he believes that he's the strongest in the world alive today. It's like, no, that doesn't matter. You know how many characters fucking gas themselves up as the strongest, even knowing they have context? Dory and Brogy are out here telling us that they're the strongest warriors in Elbaf, back when they fucking know that they're that their fucking King Harold is like 10 times stronger than them. Characters say shit all the time, you know? Mango, thanks for the 7. That's fair. So what do you think Imu will do until Luffy arrives? He doesn't have a broader plan beyond subjugating Elbaf. Will someone hold him off? The other thought I had before I closed my... Like, we literally just had this, like, 4 chapters ago. Fucking Scopper Gaban saying, I'm stronger than Rayleigh, right? Like, I think most people are aware that that doesn't literally make it automatically true. And Rayleigh was probably stronger than Scopper Gaban. So I just think that's what, like, when people argue the Kaido case, and some people literally bring up, well, Kaido said he was the strongest in the world today. It's like, dude, that doesn't, what the fuck? Oh, I'm sorry. Who's your source for Kaido being the strongest today? Oh, Kaido said it. Okay, what what an unbiased source. Okay. So Mingo Mango's asking, what do you think Imu will do until Luffy arrives? He doesn't have a broader plan beyond subjugating Elbaf. Will someone hold him off? I do feel like Imu's just gonna play that sort of I'm this floating evil being type route, because that's generally what he does, right? Like, he just sits in his chair while other characters do things. Now he's at Elbaf. I could see him, like, he created all these minions because he wants them to do his bidding. So I imagine that he's gonna let that play out. I do think that he might think that straight up fighting is beneath him, like straight up throwing hands. I know that he stabbed Sabo with his tail, but that's just like a one-off, like, for Imu, that's just like a quick, like, attack, right? Like, he's not actually trying to sit down and be the one to have to, like, throw hands about a bunch with another character, I don't think. But I might be wrong. We don't know much about him so far. Blue, thanks for being a Pirate King to remember for 30 months. Definitely get your Pirate King podcast submissions in, because I might be recording it on Wednesday. On Wednesday, I'm recording it, so get your Pirate King podcast submissions in now while you can. For those of you who don't know, Pirate King Podcast is my monthly podcast where I take all the questions from Pirate King members and answer every single one of them very in-depth, and I answer them in much more depth than I would normally a stream question. So, ask me questions about One Piece, anime, manga, movies, TV, video games, whatever you want. Yeah, and then it'll all be put into one podcast that's about an hour and a half long, and it comes out every month. So check that out if you want to check out the Pirate King tier. So Blue's asking, end of story Zoro will train the Mihawk Seraphim to surpass him. What? Blackbeard kills Akainu, Shanks and his bro experience a Freaky Friday type situation, or just the Parent Trap where they trade places regularly. All right, that's a hell of a comment, Blue. So I don't think end of story Zoro is trading the Mihawk Seraphim. I think that would be pretty lame, because it's just like, that's not a real, that's like an android. I don't want an android to become the world's strongest anything. Blackbeard kills Akainu. I do think Blackbeard's gonna kill Shanks, but Blackbeard killing Akainu, I think that'd be kind of wild. I don't know about that one. Yeah, I don't know about that one. Thomas Davis, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 27 months. Really hate the Roger downplay recently, but if Roger can simp and have conquerors, so can Sanji. Sanji agenda is hard upscaling last chapter. I don't know about hard upscaling, but I was never on the train that, like, simping means you can't have conquerors hockey. I don't think that was ever a thing. I think one thing that is important to having conquerors hockey is like just being presented as a dude with, like, aura, you know? And that's what matters more. I think you can debate how much aura Sanji has been written with in the last post-time skip or so. I don't think there's been any moment post-time skip that I'm like, shit, Sanji's got that sort of conquerors hockey type energy. I would say pre-time skip, there were definitely some moments that I was like, oh shit, this dude, like, this would make sense. So if Oda's going to rectify things, I hope he does it soon. Okay. Attilia, thanks for the 2. Is the final saga living up to your expectations? Yeah, definitely. It's surpassing my expectations in a way. It's complicated because it's surpassing my expectations in several ways. Again, it's complicated because, like, my expectations also dropped for a period of time. Because for me, for a long period of time, like, over the course of post-time skip, there were a lot of things about One Piece that, like, I wasn't, like, I would like a lot of moments and scenes and storylines in general, but, like, it wouldn't feel as strong or as moving to me as pre-time skip in many ways. But I kind of, like, set a lot of that aside because I was like, well, I feel like, and I dropped so many videos about this, I was like, well, if we look, like, Oda's building all of the storyline to Wano, so it's probably because like he's just doing a very long build up to Wano, but I think Wano's the arc where he probably saved most of his best ideas for, and so that's where we'll get like pre-time skip type storytelling. And then we got to Wano, and it's like, for me, it felt like actually just taking all of the things that I felt were a little bit off with post time skip so far, and then blowing them up to 11 in one single arc. So that made my expectations drop a lot. The final saga so far has been pretty much everything I had previously hoped for and imagined that One Piece would be in the final saga, but bigger. And I'll explain why it's even bigger in a second. But I liked to believe for a long period of time that Oda had saved all of his best ideas for the end of the story, because a lot of his interviews seem to hint that. I think we're getting that so far in the final saga. Like, we're seeing that a lot of what he saved for so many characters, he saved for this end section of the story, right? Because we're seeing, like, okay, Kobe's storyline's finally becoming clear. Like, Garp, Aokiji, their storylines are becoming clear. What he was planning with Kuma and Bonnie that whole time, that makes sense now. With the Straw Hats, like, we're finally finding out what was the deal. Like, Brooke has this whole past that we never got into. Frankie and the Atom Tree, that's actually clearly going to be a thing. Like, even as much as I hate that Saul is back, it shows that Oda didn't forget about Robin, and Oda's been planning stuff for Robin this whole time. It's becoming clear that so many of the ideas, like Shanks, we're getting so much more reveals about what the deal is actually with Shanks' character. So it's like, okay, he actually had so much thought out about this character. It's just been waiting for the final saga. Buggy, like, so much that we're getting out of Buggy, right? So it's becoming clear to me that he did, in fact, save all of his best ideas for the final saga. And on top of that, it feels like the world is really coming together in the way that we always hoped for in the final saga. And on top of that, Oda so far has been able to start delivering in emotional storytelling, for me at least, again, in this final saga, like with the Kuma backstory and everything like that, in a way that I personally found was missing for me for a long section of time in the story. So those are the places where he's hitting expectations for me. Where he's surpassing expectations is like how much the story's ballooning into something even grander and even more shocking and like epic than I could have ever predicted. Because I think most people, for like a long period of time in the story, if you ask the average One Piece fan, most of them would tell you that, like, okay, it looks like the way One Piece is concluding is going to be with they beat the four emperors, and then there's like a battle against the Marines and the Blackbeard pirates, and then the story basically ends. This was before we found out Imu was really strong. Like, this might sound really weird to say now, because it's like, well, what about the Celestial Dragons of the world government? Before Wano, that's really what it looked like. It looked like, okay, we're going to deal with Kaido Big Mom, and then the last groups left are basically the Marines and the Blackbeard pirates, and then that's end of story, right? It's really been after Wano onwards that Oda's been showing like how powerful the Celestial Dragons actually are. Like, that's when he revealed that the Gorosei are actually like all really powerful. That's when he's revealing all the Gods Knights, the Seraphim, like all of the forces that the Celestial Dragons actually have. And then obviously how powerful Imu is. And then obviously the mural and like the centuries and centuries of like history and like how this is all so much bigger and everything like that. And then on top of that, we're getting all of this lore with the Rox Pirates and everything. So this is all stuff that wasn't on the agenda for a long period of time. Again, like, to really understand, if you were a member of the One Piece community, if you went back to the end of Marineford, I would say that from the end of Marineford, so like chapter like 580 something, all the way up to at least the Reverie, at least to Wano, so like 900 something, right? So like there's like a 300, 400 chapter stretch where just the consensus was like, it was just like, okay, the final villain, we didn't know Imu existed. We didn't know the Gorosei are fighters or anything. All Oda had really presented for us are the Marines. The Marines were the world government, right? The Marines, world government, interchangeable, right? We just viewed the Celestial Dragons as their bosses. We didn't even know Celestial Dragons could be fighters. We didn't know Doflamingo was a Celestial Dragon. They just seemed like the nobles, right? So there was a giant section of the story. It was like, okay, Oda just set up Blackbeard as the final villain, and it looks like the Marines are also going to have to be taken down as well, because it's like a duo thing, right? Once we hit the Reverie and Imu was revealed, people didn't just jump on board Imu being the final villain. A lot of people didn't believe Imu was even that strong initially. It was just like, if you go back to the story back then, it's like very up in the air. Is Emu actually strong? If he's strong, how strong is he supposed to be? Yada yada. Like, just was very up in the air. A lot of people still believed, okay, Blackbeard probably final villain, and then Marines, then Blackbeard was still the assumption. Only post Wano, when everything just started being dropped all at once, like, okay, Emu has crazy powers. Okay, all the Gorosei are fucking, like, super powerful. Like, okay, all the Gods Knights, all of this stuff started being revealed back to back to back, like the Ancient Weapon, Uranus, Vegapunk creating the Mother Flames, the Seraphim. Like, suddenly, all of a sudden, like, everything came together in a way that pre-time skip you would never have been, like, not even pre-time skip, pre-Wano, you would have never been able to imagine it. Like, now, the final saga of One Piece, the scale of it is so much more grand than anything we really understood before, because it really feels like a war against heaven. Before, it was like a war for the seas, like, we're gonna have to fight the Blackbeard Pirates and the Marines and everything, but now it's just like, forget the Marines, it's literally like the devils that have ruled the ocean for, like, God knows how many millennia. That's like the actual villains, basically, right? And it goes back like multiple cycles, the mural, everything. Like, there's the first world, second world, third world. I'm getting the picture that what the One Piece actually is much bigger than I thought. I thought it was just going to be the destruction of the Red Line and the connecting the seas. Now I think it's so much more. So, yeah, the final saga is just exceeding my expectations in the sense that, like, for so many years, like for a decade, it just seemed like One Piece's finale, while it would be epic, was something that, like, we all kind of understood how it would play out. And now we get the picture that the picture is way, way, way bigger than we initially thought, but it's still consistent with everything that was set up before. And that's the key thing. Like, you don't just want to throw a bunch of shit out of nowhere, right? Like, you don't just want to suddenly be like, here are the actual bad guys and they're way stronger. It's like, we were always building towards this. We just had to learn every step one step at it, like, or learn every layer one step at a time. Like, that's why for the Marineford War, Oda's not even bringing the Celestial Dragons down to fight. It's the Marines, right? And then, you know, as it progresses, then it gets, the story progresses. Then we learn more and more about, like, what's actually at the top. Let's get stream likes up to 150 real quick. Apple Killer 2308, thanks for the 2. What's your thoughts on the last few Chainsaw Man chapters? I have not read them. I think, is part 2 over? If part 2 is over, I'll binge it. Meek, thanks for the 5. Past One Piece films have revealed stuff like Garland Shanks, Laugh Tale, etc. Do you think if there's a new One Piece movie, it could reveal Emu's face? I think that'd be too much. I think the Laugh Tale reveal really burns. I don't think the Garland reveal is the worst. But the Laugh Tale reveal really burns because the Roger laughed moment is really, really... Like, the Roger laughed moment is already an all-time iconic One Piece moment. Right? It's an all-time iconic One Piece moment. Because of the expression, the reaction, just the sense of, like, excitement it gives you for the future of the story. It feels like the past and the future are being, like, brought together. Like, we're finally unveiling the past, and it gives us a preview of what's to come in the future. And it also just captures the essence of One Piece. It's like, yes, a very epic journey, epic adventure, but at the same time, it's a feel-good thing that makes you laugh. It's not like a dark story, right? So Roger laughed, already all-time iconic moment. If we had saved the reveal of Laugh Tale for that same scene, then I think that scene would have hit, like, it's hard to imagine because the scene already hits so well, right? But to get the Roger laugh moment and then all of the Roger Pirates, like, laughing and celebrating, etc., and then the final words of the chapter being like, we decided to call this island Laugh Tale, I think that would have just, like, felt like a bullet to the head. Like, that would have hit you. Like, it would have just felt... I think everyone would have gotten chills reading it, just those words in that context, like, everything sort of just recontextualized. I think that those words carry infinitely more weight right there than they did in, like, just tossing it into, like, a tidbit of information for Stampede or some shit, you know? Yeah, I think that, like, it says a lot that moment was still such a powerful and iconic One Piece moment, and we will never get to experience how powerful it should have been if like, Oda didn't need to feed stuff to hype up films, for marketing purposes. Yeah, I think Emu's face is too big, though. Django, thanks for the 2. What new Logia... The last reason I say I think Emu's face is too big is because Oda has on record stated in past interviews and stuff like that, like, his favorite part of One Piece is drawing a new design and presenting it to the reader. That's his favorite part. So that's something that I don't think he's going to... I'm sure Emu's design reveal is one of his most anticipated moments in the story. There's a reason that he's not shown Emu's face, even though we've gotten silhouettes for the last 50 Emu appearances, right? He's not going to let the movies just have that, I don't think. I think that's something that's one of his most anticipated feelings of satisfaction as a mangaka that he's waiting on. Django, thanks for the 2. What new Logia would you like to see next? Logia are not as exciting as they once used to be. I think the Wind Logia is the last big one. I do wonder if there's an Earth Logia, because at this point we've had a lot of fruits that are adjacent, right? So we've had Morley's Paramecia, which allows him to manipulate the Earth. There might be a might be a slightly off description, but that's what I remember. And then we got Pika, who can basically assimilate with rock, transform into giant, he can assimilate into the rock, right, and manipulate it like that. We got Avalo Pizarro, who can do it to the island, right? So at a certain point, it's what would an Earth Logia have that's really different? It would be, the one thing is that Logias can create their own element in that sense, right? So he can create, this hypothetical Logia would be able to create more rock stuff. And it's just kind of a general, fantasy storytelling type thing. Anytime you have elemental abilities like fire, water, ice, etc., rock is just one of the basic ones that's in there right off the bat, right? So it feels a little weird that we don't have an Earth Logia. The Wind Logia, I think a lot of people are expecting it to be with Dragon. I think there's a small chance it's the man marked by flames who has a Wind Logia. But we've already got some teases as to who could have the Wind Logia. The Earth Logia is just a weird spot because it feels like such a basic Logia that should exist, but we've seen so many variations of the same concept that I'm not sure who would have it and how impactful it would be. At this point, a God's Knight could have it or something like that, but yeah, it's just what would this Logia do that's significantly better than what we've been seeing already? Metal Logia? Yeah, if it's a Logia that can transform into metals and stuff like that, that'd be crazy. See, it just makes you wonder, because there's things like Diamond Jozu. So it seems like that removes the possibility of Diamond being a Logia, right? But what if it's something more broad, like metals and things like that? A metal Logia would be really, really broken. Let's get the stream likes up to 150 real quick. Jesus B, thanks for the 5. Would you ever build a Lego set on stream? The One Piece Lego sets are out. I got mine today. Love the content, like the stream, people. All right, so let me share my thoughts on the Lego situation, okay? So I, as a child, I think I was not meant to be a builder of things, okay? It's hard to explain. I did like Lego. I really did like Lego, because like every kid, I had Lego sets that I would buy, and I'd box of Lego where eventually you just throw everything into the same box right after you're done building whatever. I liked having Lego, but I don't think I ever enjoyed the building process. I think what I really like, because you're a kid, you're walking through the aisles of Toys R Us. They don't have that nowadays, RIP, but you're walking through the aisles of whatever, Toys R Us, Walmart, whatever store you're in, and there's the Lego boxes. And what I'm really drawn to is not the process of building, but the pictures on the boxes, right? Because the boxes are presenting these amazing dreams, right? It's oh my God, the fucking Star Wars spaceship or whatever, right? Or it's just the boxes present such a cool picture, right? Like a giant fortress, or giant battleship or something like that, right? Or spaceship. And then you get the Lego box home. My parents would very rarely buy me those. I would always ask. I'd always be like, please, blah, 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 blah. I pointed out. My parents pretty much never bought me Lego stuff. Maybe if they bought me more Lego stuff, then I'd just become better at building things. But they very rarely bought me Lego stuff. So when they did finally like cave and buy me like a Lego thing, then I'd be excited because I'm going home with like my, my cool battleship type thing. And then I open the Lego box and then it's all broken, right? Like everything's in pieces. And then the reality of the situation hits me of just like, oh my God, I didn't get something fun. I got work, right? And then you got to read the instructions and like there's a lot of instructions and stuff. And you know what? Legos are actually genuinely like, I'm going to make my son do Lego for sure, even if he doesn't want to. Even if he's just like, Dad, I want to play whatever he wants to do. He wants to play with Barbie dolls or something. I'd be like, you can do that, son, but you have to play with Legos. Why? Because I think Legos genuinely teach you how to assemble furniture and stuff better later in life. It's your first experience doing that stuff. I hated that process. I don't know if I hated that process, but I just think that there's just like some level of cognitive dissonance. There's like a disconnect between the initial part of me in the store, excited about the image that I'm getting to see in the box, and then the future I'm envisioning of me having that completed item. And there's a disconnect where there's just this gap in the middle, which is like the hours of labor that go from point A to point B. And I just think that I was not cut out for that. I don't think I was cut out for that. So all of the Lego things that I made as a kid, I really liked having the completed product. But yeah, I think I was just I think other kids genuinely enjoyed the building process. I don't think I genuinely enjoyed the building process. I still remember to this day Bionicles. Like Bionicles were so fucking sick because they had like the best marketing strategy ever. Do they still do Bionicles? Are Bionicles still a thing? Do they still do Bionicles? I hope they do. But Bionicles was just a really cool idea. Like it's like Transformers but for Legos, and like there's like this whole lore behind them, and they've got like different elements. It's like, okay, hold on. You guys know what Bionicles are, right? I don't know what the kids do nowadays. I don't even know how to spell Bionicle anymore. But Bionicles they're amazing. Oh God, the new age Bionicles look like they suck. These are not nearly as cool as what I had when I was a kid. Are kids today just dumber? Is that why? Look at this. Look at these Bionicles. But I swear okay, look at this. Oh, this is from 2001. That's why these look so simple. Yeah, because I remember Bionicles got pretty cool as time went on. Like, more complex. Yeah, there was this whole lore. There were, like, good Bionicles, bad Bionicles. There's, like, this thing called Mata Nui. I don't know what it means. You know, like, I just, these Bionicles look a lot simpler. I think I owned this one. I literally think I might have owned this one or something remarkably similar this week, because I remember these blades. These blades feel very, very similar. Yeah, but Bionicles are just, they were really cool. They had a lot of lore around them. And so I think I only ever owned two Bionicles. So one I owned was, I think it was something like this one. And that was a pain in the ass to make. I just remember that. Because it's not like Legos. It's more like sockets. You have to put things into sockets and shit. I think it's like a little bit more complicated than Legos. Or maybe I forget. I don't know. So I had this one. And then there was one. This is like a basic Bionicle. There was one Bionicle that was like a really fucking cool. Like, I don't think it was a Bionicle itself. It was like in the lore of Bionicles. It was like a tall. This was like my prized possession. It was like among Lego things. It was like probably this tall type. Like praying mantis type creature that it had these little pellets that you could place in its mouth, and then you squeeze it and it shoots the pellets out like an attack. Or maybe it wasn't pellets, it was like little discs. So I was really excited to get that. So that was like one of the best things my parents ever bought me, and that was a pain in the ass to build, but then you could use it as a toy afterwards. I think that's what I really liked. I like the completed products you could use as toys and action figures, but I didn't like the building process. Yeah. And then the worst part is, so my next door neighbor and my best friend growing up from like elementary through middle school, I'd say, my next door neighbor, He loved building things. Very good with just general arts craft stuff and also building stuff and like piecing things together. And Legos, like he and his brother had like a gigantic vat of Legos, like 50 times bigger than my vat of Legos. And like if I went over to his place and was like, oh, what do we want to do? Okay, let's play some Legos or stuff. Like let's just take out the Legos and build some stuff. I'd be building my thing, and it'd be like, what's the comparison? I guess a comparable gap would be like, you know how like Usopp is kind of like a builder but not really, and then Frankie's like really a builder. I think it felt like that, because like I'd be building like my little thing that I think is cool, and it's like some battleship or something like that, and it's got some guns and stuff, and then he's over there building like fucking Noah's Ark or something like that, like the world's most complicated like ancient weapon or something like that. And I was just like, how is he doing this? How is this possible? And then that would make me not want to play Legos, you know? Anyway. Continuing. Enough about this. Yeah, so I'm never going to build a fucking Lego set on stream. The stream itself is, how to explain it? This demands enough of my attention that I couldn't casually be building a Lego set on stream at the same time. And I don't care what level of difficulty this Lego set might be. I don't care if it's like for kids 10 plus or kids 6 plus or kids 2 plus. I couldn't fucking build a Lego set at the same time as I'm streaming. It just wouldn't be doable. It could be a fucking 0+ age Lego set, and I still couldn't fucking build that Lego set for you guys. So just lay off. Mr. Saturn Lo-Fi, welcome to the Yonko. Thanks for joining. Yeah, I hope you enjoy the podcast. You now get access to every podcast that comes out weekly. We got podcasts that come out every Tuesday alongside the video. And thank you for the support, of course. Django, thanks for the 2. When do you think we'll learn about the Will of D? I feel like we'll get some like vague hints again this arc, kind of the same pattern we've always had. We're like, Oda, can we get some answers? Oda's like, do you like vague hints instead? We're like, we would like answers, but we'll take what you give us. So we're probably gonna get some fucking vague hints this arc. Probably some juicy stuff between Roger and Rox interactions. Maybe some hints into what Davy Jones type inspiration looks like as well. Learning about the Will of D itself in totality, I imagine will happen when Robin reads the poneglyphs. Let's get the streamlabs up to 150 real quick. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 2. Crazy how One Piece and Harry Potter both started in 1997. Oh, shit. 2 global phenomenons, eventual global phenomenons. One a bit more of a global phenomenon than the other, but One Piece will get... It's a marathon, not a sprint, right? One Piece will eventually get there. Random Guy 123, thanks for the 5. Oda said Doflamingo was meant to be fought at Wano as a Beast Pirate's ally. Could be the reason for his character shift from pre-time skip. Did Oda actually say that? That's fascinating. I think I remember seeing something like that, but I don't know if that was speculation or not. That would make so much fucking sense. In fact, I legit wonder if like Doflamingo wasn't meant to be fought by... Do you guys think Doflamingo was maybe meant to be fought then by like Law or Kid or something like that? Because Oda always introduced Law with the... So, to begin with, Law and, Kid and Doflamingo, remarkably similar portrayal pre-time skip. Remarkably similar portrayal. They both have the same thing going, where they're like... they're the 2 characters that do the big speeches, with the same exact attitude. Big smile, arms out, making big declarations and stuff like that. Kid and Doflamingo were written like damn near identical pre-time skip. Like you go read chapter like 303, Doflamingo's speech there. You read Kid's speech as he's heading into the New World. You hear Kid's speech at the end of Marineford. You look at Doflamingo's speech during Marineford. Like very, very similar vibes. Just damn similar portrayal. Damn similar like personality types. They felt like 2 peas in a pod. It felt like Kid was like inspired by Doflamingo almost. Like Oda took some inspiration even. Like even Kid's fucking cape, same shit as like the feathers type thing. There was a period of time it was just him and Doflamingo that were rocking that. Everybody nowadays does that, wears that shit, but there's a time it was just Doflamingo and Kid. I wonder if Oda wanted Kid to fight Doflamingo at some point, but Doflamingo just turned into a Luffy villain. It's interesting Doflamingo turned into a Luffy villain because it's just like he could have easily just like that connection really happened post time skip. And then Law, like Oda introduced Law with the smile thing and everything like that. Law is the character that is closely tied to Doflamingo. Like Law, a lot of Law's storyline comes to a close with him fighting Doflamingo. Law versus Big Mom was just so fucking random. There was no connection whatsoever between those two characters. It's literally just like Oda needed to give Law a fight. And so it's like, here, have Big Mom, which is just bizarre because Big Mom has so much story, so much history to her as an individual character. And it's just like, it feels like she was checked off a box because Kid and Law needed a fight. I think Doflamingo would have been much more organic there. But maybe it's just like Oda was like, well, Doflamingo's not going to be strong enough for these two characters at that point in the story. I don't really know. I don't think Oda, did he say it? I think like the power scaling is where people might get caught up. But then at the same time, Oda could have just decided what Doflamingo's power scale was later. Because we didn't actually have an idea what Doflamingo's strength level was during Marineford. There was a rather large range of speculation. Because Doflamingo's power was so mysterious. It was just like he can just like manipulate people however he wants. And again, this was at a point in time when it seemed like broken devil fruits were like the most important thing. And we were just starting to grasp how important Haki was. It was still like a little vague to us, right? So yeah, at Marineford, what people saw was like Doflamingo casually controlling Jozu. So we had no real idea for like, we got the sense Doflamingo wasn't being portrayed like an admiral or anything like that. But we also got the sense that like, okay, this guy could be really, really strong, right? So Oda could have played with Doflamingo. Like, Oda ended up deciding Doflamingo was about like third commander, you could say at a stretch like second commander level. But Oda could have easily said that Doflamingo is like first mate level or stronger. That was still up in the air. So he tailored Doflamingo to what level of strength he needed Luffy to be at, basically. Doflamingo and Onigashima would have just been so much tighter because, like, it makes so many storylines flow better. Like, it would allow you to write that whole Law storyline to conclude with Doflamingo in a very fitting way, right? Because Law gets his most important battle in Wano, Onigashima, but it's like a really random battle. It's just like he's fighting Big Mom. I don't think anybody ever had on their bingo cards Law fighting Big Mom. He has no relationship to her. I don't think she even knows who he is. He's never said her name throughout the entire fucking arc. Like, in Wano itself, he never fucking talks about Big Mom, right? But then you just see Law fighting Big Mom, right? Kid at least once had an altercation with the Big Mom Pirates, but Kid also made clear that that was, like, kind of a footnote for him. Like, he has no specific beef with Big Mom. His biggest beefs were with Shanks and Kaido, and they were kind of his direction, and he kind of just got handed Big Mom. But yeah, if we had Law going, like, with Law fighting Doflamingo in Wano, that would have just been, like, it would have synced up so much better, because, like, Law's getting his actual meaningful storyline in a win against Doflamingo. The thing about Law and Doflamingo that needs to be remembered is that Law and Doflamingo's storyline, it never had to resolve in Dressrosa. Dressrosa is a random location. Doflamingo didn't even rule Dressrosa back when he and Law had their whole storyline. Law only cared about taking down Doflamingo. Doflamingo just happened to be in Dressrosa at the point in time that Law's plans came to fruition. But Law himself had no connection to Dressrosa. That's partly why I feel like the Dressrosa arc, I've talked about this in past streams, it's a bit more of a hodgepodge of an arc than like the cleaner storytelling we had pre-time skip, because the main emotional crux that's driving things on the Straw Hat side is like Law versus Doflamingo. Like, Law is their ally that really brought them into the storyline, and he's against Doflamingo. But Law's conflict with Doflamingo has nothing to do with the island of Dressrosa's conflict with Doflamingo. Those are two separate camps. So like Kiros, Rebecca, Riku, Law doesn't even fucking know who any of these characters are. he doesn't know what Doflamingo's done in this country for the past X years. Like, same with Leo and the Tentadas. That's its own whole separate storyline. So whereas ordinarily, like, pre-time skip, you get to an island, you're meeting the island characters, like, and you're engaged in the conflict through them and why they want to take down the king. And, like, even with, like, Vivi is part of the island conflict, right? Vivi is the one bringing them into the Alabasta conflict because she is an Alabasta citizen, because they all hate Crocodile, right? So there's a sort of congruence between everything that's happening, the characters that we're meeting, congruence between the setting, the characters, the conflict, and the villain, right? Dressrosa has a very weak sense of... A lot of it is pieced together, it feels like. Oda's even talked about how he wanted fucking Greenbit and the Tentada story to be a separate island, and then that got pushed into the Doflamingo Dressrosa storyline. Because, like, you got the Doflamingo storyline, but the Straughts are coming in with a totally different agenda. Like, they want to take down Doflamingo, not to save Dressrosa, but because it connects to a broader plot piece, which is taking down Kaido, right? But then Law, who is the Straught's companion, he actually secretly, really personally wants to take down Doflamingo, and Law kind of becomes our main character that we're experiencing Dressrosa through for a long period of time. But then at the same time, we do get context about what's been going on in the island and the Dressrosa people. It's just got very little to do with what the Straughts are here for or what Law is here for. So it's just like an additional add-on that the Straughts hear about over time. And then you got the fucking Coliseum fighters as, like, add-ons on add-ons. And then, like, Oda kind of weaves it together so everything converges in the sense that everybody ultimately everyone feels motivated to take down Doflamingo, but for very different reasons. Whereas, like, you know, past arcs, like, it's a little bit cleaner. Like, why, like, what is the story of Alabasta? It's a story about Crocodile slowly sowing the seeds of rebellion and basically trying to bring the country down, and the Straughts coming in because the princess of the country has discovered the rebellion and wants to stop Crocodile. Everybody's experiencing the same pain, same goals, same desires, same storyline, right? Skypiea, very, very similar. You have one conflict for the story of Skypiea and what the Chandrins are going through. The Straughts are coming in with a different agenda, but they slowly get roped into this Chandrins agenda. It's not like 10 different agendas going on. Yeah, anyway, that's a long... I do think that, like, a lot of that stuff is also maybe representative of like, Oda not initially planning a whole Doflamingo storyline. Who knows? Okay. Let's get the stream likes up to 150 real quick. Eric is saying, I get you now, Morge. Oh, because of the Lego stuff? Keep in mind, all stories that I share are exaggerations of my past and childhood, but there's truth to them all in some degree. SMX Wing, thanks for the 20. Giants are renowned for size, strength, and being warriors. No other character, much less giant, has a more impressive pure feet strength than Hadruden 10,000 tons. Dorian Brogy got owned by a barrel of TNT, and Mr. 3 conquers hockey. We gotta argue this. I guarantee that if Hadruden tried to punch, let's say Luffy's too high up. Let's say Hadruden tried to punch, like, I don't know, fucking Kobe or something like that, and their punches clashed. Hadruden's arm would get blown off. Hadruden's not in these conversations. Dorian Brogy got owned by a barrel of TNT, and Mr. 3 conquers hockey. Yeah, it's kind of crazy how that happened to Dorian Brogy, because, like, it's not even like Oda didn't plan them to be that strong. He clearly, like, he gave them feats of strength, like lifting that skeleton, right? Like lifting the island-sized skeleton that was basically like a mountain and pinning Luffy under it. That was a feat of strength that literally you have to go all the way to, like, deep into the New World before you can really argue, like, anybody else has, like, lifting strength like that. Like, fucking Diamond Jozu tossing that iceberg wasn't as impressive as what Dorian Brogy did in Little Garden. Them doing that giant air cannon, their signature move that destroyed the fish. That's something that we didn't see replicated until fucking, like, Big Mom, right? So Dorian Brogy had crazy feats, but I think Oda didn't really know what's a good way to, like, bring them down. And so, like, the TNT thing, that's internal damage. So I'll give that, I'd say that's fair. But the other giant, I mix their names up all the time. I guess Brogy, Dory, whichever one, the shorter one, he has no excuse because he won the fight, and then after that, Mr. 3 took him down, you know? And there wasn't any sort of, like, additional circumstance. You could argue that maybe his will was so weak that he just got taken down by Mr. 3, but it doesn't really make sense. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 150 real quick. Crow Stray God, thanks for the 5. Hi, Moj. How are you going to rank the Rox Pirates? Like, I don't even know who's supposed to be stronger out of Captain John, Wang Zi, Silver Axe, and Big Mom. So let's get into that. Let's start there. Let's get into the rankings. Let's set the stage. We need a stage to set. Bad guys. Well, not even bad guys. Let me share screen. Hold on. All right. So, we have done a Rox Pirates versus like God Valley matchup prediction stream before, but at that point in time, we were woefully ignorant. We didn't know jack shit. We didn't know who the Rox Pirates were. We knew vaguely who's on whose side, but not really a bunch, right? Okay, so first we're gonna rank the Rox Pirates, right? So let's rank those guys, and then let's make a word bank also over here for the other side. Roger, Marines, Gods, Knights, Roger, Marines, CDs, Alliance, right? I'll knock these out first real quick, right? We got Roger, we got Rayleigh, we got Gabon. I figured those are the prominent members that Oda will show in action. Right, I'm just going to put down prominent members that we can feel certain will be shown in action, right? Roger, Rayleigh, Gabon. Garp, obviously. Garling. Then from here, it's like other Gods Knights. Oh, Sommers. I think Sommers is going to be in there. Because Sommers was familiar with Skopper Gabon and stuff. I'll just put other Gods Knights. And then we got Saturn. I don't know if Saturn's going to fight anybody, though. Because, like, that just might not be what he wants to do. So, I think at the time of God Valley... Well, we'll get into rankings for these characters later, right? Right now, I just did it by faction. Here we go. We're going to do some rankings. And we're going to try and guess roughly how strong their level would have been at this point in time. Okay, so Rox... Why does it do this? Why does it do this to me? All right. We got Rox. All right. Rox, I think Whitebeard. Shiki. Then I got either Silver Axe or Big Mom. The tricky thing is that, like, they made a big deal about... Like, so Whitebeard and Shiki were kind of like Rox's two guys at the beginning. You know, right off the bat, they're like, it seems like they might be, if Rox has a right and left hand man, it seems like Whitebeard and Shiki are those. So they already get highlighted from the beginning. Then it doesn't feel like Oda particularly highlighted Big Mom when she joined. I feel like, do we give it to Big Mom out of respect? Because the other one is Silver Axe. So Silver Axe got the big debut, right? Silver Axe, Big Mom. Here, let me ask. At time of God Valley, who was stronger? What was Big Mom's age at God Valley? It would have been 20s? Late 20s? This is tight. I just don't know. One thing to keep in mind is that Big Mom did have probably a pretty fast growth rate. Is it 10 years old that she had a 500 million berry bounty? I feel like something like that. Jordan Van says Big Mom survived. She was stronger. Well, then by that logic, Rox is weaker than Captain John. Let's go with Big Mom just out of... I mean, it does look like Silver Axe won. Big Mom is 68. Yeah, the thing is that it's just that I don't know how far off Big Mom would have been from her prime because, again, like she sprouted up really fast. Like again, she had a bounty of 500 million at 10 years old. You know, so like she's already. I just don't know how long it would have taken for her to get to her prime. Yeah, we'll power scale the characters. Sengoku said that Big Mom wasn't in her prime. Let me take a look again at Sengoku's quotes so we're not misconstruing them. In addition to their Captain Rox, they also featured a young Whitebeard, Big Mom, and Kaido. I don't think he specifically says that they weren't near their full strength. That's what we can assume, because it makes sense, right? Maybe it was during when we first hear of Rox. Let me go to 906. Where did they first talk about Rox and shit? 907? Sorry, hold on. But Garb, speaking of Big Mom and Kaido. Yeah. Yeah, they've talked about how their strength is growing. That's true. Like Hina said that actually. Okay. It could imply like military strength, not personal strength, but you know. Yeah, let me catch up on supers real quick. Sorry, 1 second. Tonga Tapu says she was only 30 years old. Whitebeard reached his prime at 38 years. Yeah, but the thing is that Big Mom, like, her growth rate was so fast, you know? So that's why I'm like only 30 years old means different things. Like, Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji are going to be at their primes at, you know, like, they're going to reach their peak at, like, 20, 21, 22, right? I think... Mihawk is how old? What is Mihawk's age? Mihawk was 41 at the debut, and that means that he basically reached his peak because he didn't have duels with Shanks after Shanks lost his arm, is what's implied, right? So Mihawk was at his peak. He was world's strongest swordsman by the time he was like 30, you know, 30, 31. Yeah, I agree. Wang Zi should be 6. Wang Zi should be 6, and then after that we have debates. Here, let me catch up on supers. Stretch, thanks for the 5. Rouge's father is Rox's right hand / doctor. What? Who did Big Mom child surgery? Who did Big Mom's child surgery? What? Daughter died of childbirth. Blood paramecia. Created level 1 impel down. Created level 1 impel down. All right, that is a complicated theory. I don't fully understand it. I could easily see it being possible, but I just don't understand it. I don't think I can piece together everything you're saying right there. Maybe some people in chat fully understand. Mr. Saturn Lo-Fi, thanks for the 10. Everyone's expecting a big Usopp power-up in Elbaf, but I think the real payoff will be him inspiring the giant children to be warriors, and he'll be seen as a great warrior of the sea for generations. I do think that'll be his biggest win, which is like inspiring others, similar to Dressrosa. But I do think that we do need to see some Usopp power-up at this point, because otherwise, how the fuck is he going to beat Van Augur in like an arc, you know? Bassam El Madawi, thanks for the 2. How do you feel current pacing changes Dressrosa? Current pacing, like current anime pacing? I'm sure Dressrosa will be greatly improved by the new anime version of it. Are you saying that like like if we had the current pacing but applied to Dressrosa in the manga? I'm not fully understanding your question, but like I think it's not possible to have the current stories pacing in Dressrosa because Dressrosa was a storyline that like tried to do 10 different plot lines simultaneously. And generally speaking, you can only move the story along at like a good pace that's not too choppy if you have fewer plot lines going on. Like the more plot lines that are going on, the harder it is for a story to move at like a fast pace, you know? Django, thanks to the 5. Do you think Oda had planned Corazon and Law's backstory when he named Law's crew the Heart Pirates? I think he might have figured out like what he wanted the theme of the character to be, which is like, and then came up with Corazon and all of that afterwards. I think that's possible. Because Law's first thing right off the bat is that he's a doctor. He has the doctor fruit and all of that stuff, right? It's playing on very similar themes that Oda's already done in Drum Kingdom, which was very, like, Drum Kingdom established the concept that, like, the main thing you need to be a good doctor is a good heart, the power of the heart to, like, cure people. Like, even though you can't medically cure people through that, like, there is value to the power of the heart and all of that stuff like that. Like, that's what Drum Kingdom established. That was its main theme. Dressrosa is very much, like, a similar... It takes a lot of the beats of Drum Kingdom and then just turns into a much grander storyline. I mean, like, the thing I've talked about plenty is, like, obviously the Chopper hero look and the Law Corazon parallels are very, very similar. And then just similar storytelling in the sense of, like, the main villain basically being, like, a king / pirate. Like, a pirate, like, someone who started off with nobility, then became a pirate for some time and experienced that side of things, and then now is coming back to become the king again, right? That's Doflamingo's storyline. That's Wapple's storyline. Doflamingo's main, like, critique is that, like, he's this heartless figure, etc., and that was, like, thematically a big deal in Drum Kingdom, that, like, Wapple, you can't be a good king because you have a bad heart, yada yada. So all of that is to say, like, when Oda first came up with Law, like, just from the smile stuff on its own, it seems like Oda already planned that Law would have a storyline with Doflamingo, and on top of that, the Heart Pirates and everything like that, it's very possible that Oda already thought out that Doflamingo would be this heartless figure. Likely he might have figured out, like, the Celestial Dragon aspect of everything as well, because Oda already has it established that Doflamingo seems to have some special privileges. You know, the way he talks to CP0 and everything like that. So Oda may have already figured a lot of that stuff out. I don't know if he'd come up with the concept of Corazon necessarily, but, you know, Law having a good heart in contrast to Doflamingo, the Heart Pirates, Law being a doctor, it's very possible Oda was already thinking of, like, using Drum Kingdom as a template for a lot of things that he was thinking of the Doflamingo character storyline. Sorry. SMXW, thanks for the 2. Theory, Silver Axe is an informant. Yeah, the thing is, like, I wonder then, though, like, why does Sengoku call Silver Axe, like, some, like, well-known pirate then? Like, in 957, Sengoku's listing the various pirates from Rox's crew, and he's like, there are a lot of legendary pirates on there, like Golden Lion and Silver Axe and stuff like that. And it's like, if Silver Axe was, like, a marine, why not praise him as, like, an all-time great marine, you know? That's my only thought, but I do imagine it's likely that the Rox Pirates might have needed to have an informant or something like that, maybe to give people a heads up about... No, it's tricky because, like, the Rox Pirates are the ones who took God Valley by surprise, right? Because the world government was surprised. So I don't think they were informed on, right? Nicholas Nick, thanks for bringing a Yonko to your member for 16 months. Two devil fruits are the 2 Nika fruits. Only 2 legendary. Why introduce 2 Nikas in the first place? Vegapunk saying devil fruits are created from beliefs. The pair makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I've been talking about since the beginning of Elbaf that I think that there are 2 Nika fruits and that there's, like, destructive one and a good one or whatever. And if they're both real, I think that'd be really cool. If that's the case, the one that is in Elbaf is likely the destructive one, right? And then the one that Luffy has is the other one. And maybe that's why Rox wanted Herald specifically to eat it, because he's just like the you know, like the warrior king of Elbaf would be most fitting to have that destructive fruit, and then maybe Rox wants the other one, the goofier one. Who knows? Hussam Hashmi, thanks for the 5. I think there's an inner hierarchy within the world noble families. For example, the Figarlands, the Shepherds, who are the powerhouses and always knew about Emu. I think that as we go, we will realize that that some families have greater sway than others. I think it's also interesting in that, like, the God's Knight system and the fact that many God's Knights seem to be, from Celestial, like they're pulled from the flow. Pretty much all the God's Knights are pulled from the Celestial Dragon families. That's fascinating because it suggests that before we knew any of this, it seemed like the Celestial Dragons would just naturally all be essentially equals because they're all basically nobles and they don't have to do anything, right? Like they just exist to rule the world. And they don't even just do that much in terms of politics. Just the Gorse, they take care of the politics. So like the Celestial Dragons just get to live, be lords, be nobles, and just enjoy their lives, right? So there's no room for hierarchy among them because they're all just not doing anything, right? But once the God's Knights are introduced and the God's Knights compete with one another, like with the God Valley hunting competitions and stuff like that, you can get promoted as a God's Knight, you can become a Gorse and everything like that, you can climb the ranks, you have different levels of status. That opens a very interesting potential new dimension to the way the Celestial Dragons hierarchy could work, in that like if you're a family that keeps producing like top tier God's Knights, like and you are kind of like like the Figarlands, they've probably got several really, really strong God's Knights in there historically, or like the Shepherds family, like they had Jupiter, they've got Sommers and stuff like that. Then at a certain point, does that add to your status and weight as a family? Like how many, how many, notable, how many notable figures have you really produced in terms of like powerful fighters and stuff like that, right? Because like if there's just one bum family that never produces any like characters that are capable of being God's Knights, I wonder, do they start to hold less sway among the other Celestial Dragons? I don't know. I will say that like while the Celestial Dragons obviously completely evil, yada yada, worst characters in One Piece, I will say that it does kind of suck if you're a Celestial Dragon family and then like you think that you are in an environment and like get to live a lifestyle where there's like no pressure, no responsibilities, nothing. Like we get to enjoy all of this luxury and splendor and like just that's it. That's my life. But then at the same time there's like a military squad and there's like weird pressure that you have children or raise kids that are also strong enough to be part of that military squad. So it's like, it's not like things are completely pressure free, right? Because at a certain point you don't want to be like a family that just can never, there's no fucking God's Knights coming out of your family, right? That also means that from a young age the Celestial Dragons are being scoped out, like, oh, does this one has potential as a combatant and stuff like that, and they're probably being made to train and fight and everything like that. So that's interesting. It's an interesting added aspect to the Celestial Dragon system because it just doesn't seem congruent with everything we thought about how they grew up and everything like that. So it's almost worse for Celestial Dragon if it turns out you got like a little bit of talent at fighting. Like they would have made Doflamingo, train and everything, Anyway, let's get back to ranking these God's Pirates. These Rox Pirates. Okay. Let's get into it. Roger won 1v1 against Rox, y'all will see. I do personally think that I think it'll be one of those where it was maybe like a team effort to start with, but I think it will come down to Roger having a hockey bloom against Rox and surpassing Rox by the end of the fight. I personally think that that's what we're heading towards. Okay, Wang Zi. Who's up next? I'll just jot down names, but that doesn't mean that's actually the case. I think we got... So this is definitely the 6. I think this is definitely the top 3. I think these are 4. I think 4 and 5 might be swapped, and I think Wang Zi I got confidently at 6. Beyond that, we'll have Gloriosa. We'll have Bakin. We'll have Captain John in there. I'm just putting the characters down who will be in there, not necessarily who matters. We got Don Marlon. We got Ganzui. We got the Fishman. What's the Fishman's name again? Jordan Vance is pushing the Gil Baster. We got Kaido. Barbell. Okay. Okay, so just sitting back real quick, right? Um, this next group is tricky. I would lean Gloriosa at 7. I would lean Gloriosa at 7. Because Gloriosa was, as far as we know, like she was the most successful. Like the Rox Pirates were this huge crew. Then the Roger Pirates were this huge, powerful crew at the same time, or like up and coming. And then you had the Kuja Pirates. Like the Kuja Pirates were a notable pirate crew at the time. Um, I don't know if Gloriosa is as strong as Hancock is today or whatever, but we get the sense that like Shaki like was really strong. We know how strong Hancock is. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Gloriosa is like really really strong as well, right? So I think Gloriosa is an easy 7. Just first Kuja Pirates or the whole Kuja Pirates dynasty, all of that stuff. Yeah. Oh, Strusen. So Strusen, my feeling right now. So if I look at the Big Mom Pirates today, right? If I look at the Big Mom Pirates today, I see you got Big Mom, Yonko level. You got Katakuri, Smoothie, Cracker, Yonko Commander level. And then I feel like these are her officer equivalents, right? So you got I guess you got to throw Snack in here. Snack, Sparrow, Oven, Daifuku, Compote. We were told that Compote belongs here, even though she never did anything. And then I think you got Strusen in this group too. Strusen might even be the strongest of this group. He's like a mystery. So I basically got Strusen at like I view this tier as the equivalent of Tobi Roppo for the Big Mom Pirates, like this group of characters. And then like once you go below that, then you get to characters like Bobbin, you know Bobbin, Opera, even Peckham's and stuff. Like even Tamago is in this group because it was made clear that Tamago and Pedro are like equal, but Pedro cannot fight characters in this tier. He immediately loses to Paraspero, immediately loses to Oven. Even Sanji was struggling with characters in this tier until he got like stronger than Wano and all of that stuff. Anyway, so etc. Like basically I call this like below Tobi Roppo level. Like they wouldn't make the cut. So I've got Strusen here. Maybe it would help if I'm putting how strong I think these characters are. So I'd say Pirate King level. I think Whitebeard at this point, Yonko level. I think Shiki at this point, Yonko level. Big Mom, Admiral level. I know a lot of people will want to argue that Admiral and Yonko is a totally different level. I even know people who think that Yonko and Pirate King is just all one big tier. For the purposes of this, just like I just think I think Whitebeard at God Valley beats Whitebeard at Marineford. Like that's basically where I put him. Okay, so like, whereas like, yeah, like Admiral level to me means more like like Fujitora, Green Bull, Kizaru. Like I just don't think that's quite equal to like Prime Kaido, Prime Big Mom, current Shanks, stuff like that. Meek, thanks for the 5. Sorry I missed this, but why are John/Gonzly/Barbell in the bottom echelon? We're still ranking. So I just jotted them down by off of memory, and now we're ranking them. So we've got up to 7. I think, is there any arguments for anyone being above Gloriosa? Gloriosa was like, I mean, being captain of the Kuja Pirates, which was like maybe the 3rd most prominent pirate crew of that era, I think that's a big deal. Chief says John should probably be higher, not gonna lie. I'm not putting Captain John any higher because, this is speculation, but my feeling is that Captain John is just the dude that managed to sneak away with the treasure, and that's why he's famous. He's famous for his treasure. I don't think his strength itself is supposed to be that noteworthy. Let's take a look at these people charging into battle, right? Okay. Whitebeard leading the charge. Shiki also kind of leading the charge. Yeah, Bakin I don't think is that strong. Gloriosa. I just don't know. I just don't know if there's much to suggest that like Captain John should be ranked really high. I truly feel like he's just the guy that got away with the treasure, and that's what he's known for. That's my feeling right now. Let's take a look here as well. I know he's not in this chapter yet, but let's just take a look at what the pirates look like. So we got the core crew. Yeah, Bakin I don't think is... I think Bakin is basically... Who do I have? Bakin or Strusen? I think I got Bakin above Strusen. Toby Ropo level. Toby Ropo level. Maybe I got Strusen above Bakin. Okay. I think Young Kaido is above these characters. I don't think Young Kaido's that weak. I don't have Kaido at like last or anything. So these characters, where do they go? Because this is not Kaido right now in this moment. This is at God Valley, at the time of God Valley. Okay, and at that point, Kaido's like 20 years old, right? He's 20 years old. Like he's not gonna be like that. He's not gonna be a scrub. Kaido was already considered like really strong by his nation's military and the Marines and stuff like that before he joined the Rox Pirates. Yeah, I think Wang Zi is really strong. Okay, Wang Zi. Yeah, we can put Wang Zi at admiral level. I mean, he called himself the Admiral of Pirate Kingdom. Let's say Yonko 1. Basically around where I put Hancock. Some people would say Yonko 1 plus. We could put Yonko 1 plus. I don't know if we want to scale to Hancock or something. I just don't think Yonko 1 plus is like a thing. I just think first mate level is a lot bigger than people think. Yeah, I feel like Kaido at God Value is probably Yonko Commander level. Kurakami Najimi says if Shiki is Yonko level, then Axe has to be. No, because I think Shiki... I think pretty much everyone would assume that Shiki... Well, maybe next chapter shows Shiki and Silver Axe tying or something like that, but... how do you say this? Like, Shiki's legend is so much bigger than Silver Axe's. Like, Silver Axe is known for... Shiki's known for, like, a million different things, and then Silver Axe is known for being a rival to Shiki, right? So, like, I don't think that automatically puts them on the same level. It's the same way that, like, Kid is not on the same level as Luffy, despite being Luffy's rival, right? Rival doesn't mean that much, and the simple, like, on its own. The simple fact that, like, Oda's kind of... like, how do we know Roger's above... How do we know the ranking of the Roger Pirates? Gold, silver, copper, right? Gold, Roger, silver, Aurelius, copper, Gabon, right? How do we know who's number one, number two between Shiki and Silver Axe? Gold, Lion, Silver, Axe, 1, 2, right? Oda's not really trying to be subtle about it. It's kind of like these characters were named from the get-go to be ranked, you know? Maybe Silver Axe is also Shiki's level, but I imagine that based on how much... Like, Shiki's legend was pretty damn crazy if you go back through Chapter 0. I'm not just going to go ahead and assume that Silver Axe is, like, at that same level. Yeah, Moria was Kaido's rival. William May says it's their hair color. Who wrote the hair color? Do you think that these are like real people that are just randomly born with different colors hair, like genetic? Oh, it's just the genetic of my parents or something, like genetics of my parents or something. Or do you think it's like an author who wrote them into the story and tends to do naming conventions based on silly things like gold, silver, copper, like he's already done on the other side right here? Do you think that there's no intentionality whatsoever to naming one gold and the other silver? SMX Wing, thanks for the 5. Tournaments like God Valley are probably tryouts or entry to be a God's Knight, seeing as the grand prize were Devil Fruits. All current God's Knights have a Devil Fruit. That's a good point. Yeah. Like, seeing how well they do in the hunting competition. Because then that way for the Celestial Dragons, it's like, they get to enjoy themselves while still, like, being scoped for the God's Knights, you know? Because, like, I can't imagine Celestial Dragons kids, like, being properly, like, forced to do training and stuff like that, unless, like, to see who's strong. But doing it in games and stuff to find out who would make a good soldier, that makes a lot of sense. That's a great point. Okay, so we're still trying to figure these guys out. I don't think Captain John was that strong. I'm going to go ahead and put Captain John down here. This is actually very difficult. Maybe Captain John was strong. I have no way of, like, I feel confident in this hierarchy. I don't know where these guys fall. Like, where the fuck am I supposed to put Barbell? Let me look at their descriptions again. We got Don Marlon. These characters' dialogue is not helping me that much. Okay. Maybe Captain John is strong. Let's put Captain John higher. Meeks' Barbell is Jinbei level. I don't know. Yeah, let's put that Jinbei level. You know what? We don't need to be ranking all of these characters necessarily, right? We just need to put down characters that we think are like, it doesn't matter if they've got Toby Ropo level characters, right? Like, we're talking about characters like Roger, Rayleigh, Gabon, Garb, Garling, right? Like, those are the main ones. So, what if we ignore things past a certain point, right? I'm just going to go ahead and say Strusen. I'm not going to even bother ranking these. Strusen, Mbakin, Captain John, Don Marlon, Gonzui, Barbell. Vaguely Toby Ropo level or up. I think at the scale that we're talking about here, I think it doesn't really matter unless you're like Yonko first mate level and up. And we already know some characters like Strusen and Bakin definitely were not that. So then it's like, how much do we want to speculate on like Gonzui and all of these guys? Let's get the Streamlabs up to 200 real quick. Reverse 6K, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 5 months. I think the Ope Ope no Mi and Nikyu Nikyu no Mi are the two fruits Rox was looking for. Herald with Kuma's fruit would be unstoppable. What? The Ope Ope no Mi and the Nikyu Nikyu no Mi. What? I could see Ope Ope no Mi, but Nikyu Nikyu is interesting. Herald with Kuma's fruit. That would be cool because he does like to just blast things away, as he says. So maybe you got a point there. Daniel Iavorsky, thanks for the 5. Loving the flashback, but I'm a little worried Oda is doing too much with so many characters getting focused. Hope he ties it all together by the end. Yeah, he is. He's doing a lot. He's doing a lot. I don't think that we're gonna get anything that's that in depth. It might be jumping around a lot until we get to Loki and Herald stuff, and hopefully God Valley. Anime Dimension, thanks for bringing up Pirate King to your member for 33 months. Always thankful for the support from you, man. And just make sure you get in your Pirate King podcast submission. I'm gonna be aiming to record Wednesday, so yeah, Pirate King podcast is open. In chapter 1096, Big Mom's intention was to steal and leave God Valley, so I think as soon as the Rox Pirates arrived, she left the crew to find treasure and got Kaido's fruit, so I don't think she's involved in the fight. That's true, but what's interesting is that she ends up visually really close to Saturn. She ends up physical proximity-wise very close to Saturn, and then it's implied Kuma teleports away as soon as him and Saturn's showdown starts. So it's like with Saturn face off with Big Mom. But yeah, that's the thing. It's like how many of these pirates are actually going to stand their ground and fight against Roger's side? Animated Dimension goes on to say, I think everyone has their own agenda and not involved in the fight. Another example is Gloriosa. After seeing Roger, she might have left to see Roger. That's a really good point. And I'm honestly like that might just be how things end up going down. If we go to like 957, the silhouette that Oda showed us of God Valley, which, may not be accurate to what actually happens in God Valley, but the silhouette that Oda showed us, it seemed like Oda was trying to imply that this was a really cool battle where, you see the Roger and Garp fighting against Rox, Big Mom, Whitebeard, and Kaido and everything. You see that stuff, but that's just a general visualization of the battle, not how it necessarily actually went. So, I hope that it's not just like everybody scatters and there's no real side versus side showdown. I'm sure it'll be a very chaotic battle because Garp is there to fight Roger to begin with and everything. So I'm sure things will be very messy, but I still hope we get to see some matchups. Let's be real. We're not going to get to sit down and get 10 chapters straight of just all of these fights playing out in matchups. We are going to get to see little clashes and skirmishes on the side. You just look to the even Marineford level skirmishes. I don't think we're going to get to see. Marineford, it was we get 2 pages of Marco intercepting Kizaru and kicking Kizaru, and that was that fed us for so long. That was one of the hypest interactions for years. Jozu Aokiji, that's that whole interaction's put it all together, it's maybe 1 page, but that still feels like a fight, I don't think we're gonna get even that level of clashes here. We'll probably just get to see some characters clashing on the side with other characters, and that's basically what it's gonna look like. Reverse 6K, thanks for the 5. Those 2 fruits can also interact with the soul. Oh, that's a good point. And I think soul manipulation is being hyped up, especially with Dami Reversi being introduced. That's a really good point. But then who would he want to eat the Ope Epitome? I don't think Harold's a great pick for the Ope Epitome. Yeah. I do think Garp is going to be a big deal. Kaido wanted to fight, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's Sengoku's headcanon since he wasn't there, Yeah, that's also true. Okay, so let's get into it, though. If we were to rank here, I'd say I think Roger reaches his prime here. Rayleigh, I think, is Yonko level. I think this is all of their primes. I think this is their biggest battle. I think Aban is Yonko level. Garp is Pirate King level. Garling, I think, is Yonko level. Saturn, I think, is Admiral level. Others don't really matter. So how the fuck did this shake out? I feel like it might have been. So I'll just say what I think, and then you guys can chime in, okay? Let's delete this shit. So I personally think Morge's prediction Roger slash Garp fought each other first, then 2v1'd Rox, then Roger 1v1'd Rox. I think that's basically... I think that that's something that could have happened. I think really stalled Whitebeard or Garling stalled Whitebeard till Whitebeard didn't feel like fighting anymore. The reason I say Garling might have stalled Whitebeard, Garling may have stalled Whitebeard based on Whitebeard's wound slash scar comment to Shanks. See what I'm saying? I think Gabon versus Shiki. I think I don't know. I think Gabon versus Shiki. If not Gabon versus Shiki, then maybe we got... Oh, no, you know what? I'm being fucking dumb. I'm being dumb. Maybe it was Rayleigh versus Shiki and Gabon versus Silver Axe. Because Silver Axe has axes and shit like that, you know? So maybe Garling stalled Whitebeard? Does that make sense? I think that's a possibility. Yeah, Whitebeard versus Garling. And this kind of lines up with how I view the character's strengths, too. Big Mom. So as people said, Big Mom, we might get skirmish with Saturn based on proximity. Chap 1096. That'd be interesting. Harold versus Whitebeard? I don't think that Harold was there. If Harold was there, then the Rox Pirates would have won. Leonard Joaquin Teofranco, you liberated me, Joy Morge. Thank you. You talk about when you enjoyed One Piece the most, helped me understand what to do again and regain my love of story. Silver Axe versus Bagard, brief clash. Okay, I'm going to ignore the last part of what you said, but thank you. That actually makes me feel really good. I don't know what I said specifically that helped reignite your love, but that makes me happy to hear, honestly. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm happy that I could just help you get another perspective. Silver Axe, I put very few stocks into Bagard. Maybe we see Bagard clashing with like Gansui or some shit, but I'm prepared to be wrong, but I genuinely don't believe Bagard is that strong. I don't think Bagard's doing jack shit here. Big Beep Creations, thanks for the 10. Hey, Morge, I'm doing a series to celebrate my 10th rewatch of One Piece. 10th rewatch of One Piece? Rewatch. 10th rewatch of One Piece. Because reread is one thing. Rereading One Piece takes a ton of time, but, like, it's not crazy. Hold on. How many canon One Piece episodes are there? How many canon One Piece episodes are there? Okay, so there's like 1,000 canon episodes. Let's say with skipping and stuff like that, every episode is 15 minutes. 1,000 times 15. Okay, so that's a 15,000 minutes divided by 60. So that's 250 hours. 250 hours. Obviously, there's 24 hours in a day, but realistically, you probably max out at watching something like 10 hours in a day, right? So 250 times 10, so 2,500 hours, basically. You're coming up on your 2,500 hours of watching One Piece with this 10th rewatch. Like, if we did want to do 2,500 just straight up by divided by 24 hours, right? That's only 104 days. It's not the worst, but that's if you're watching morning and night. Anyway, I think it's I think it's insane, crazy that you've rewatched One Piece 10 times. I never knew that. I genuinely didn't believe that there's anybody out there who has rewatched One Piece like the full story that many times. So that is insane. Congrats, because you are one of the biggest One Piece anime fans like in existence. You probably know the series inside and out. But certain episodes seem to trigger super auto ID. Are there any episodes I should watch out for in terms of copyright or lore? Oh, you're saying like on your channel or something? Like on your YouTube channel? I am very poor. I'm notoriously poor at being able to avoid copyright stuff. That's why, like, any time that I've accidentally dipped my toes into like letting some audio player or show some too much of a screen or something, it gets I get in trouble. That's why I do the thing where like when I react to any episode, I what is it? When I react to any episode, I'm flipping it, minimizing it, turning the opacity down to 50%. I do all those tricks because I am not good at avoiding copyright stuff. So I'm sorry, I cannot help you there. MOH, thanks for the 5. Maybe Rox was killed by Gunko or Imu possessing another god knight. It'd be another reason for world government to destroy the island. Also, Garp took no credit. Yeah, Garp took no credit, but I think Garp was involved in the fight. Emu possessing another god knight. Yeah, if Rox was killed by Emu in the end, because we don't know if Roger is like would kill him like that. All right. So this is the main matchups that I've got so far. I think even the idea of like Rayleigh fighting Shiki and Silver Axe fighting Gabon, that just makes sense to me because it just feels like, because Oda even played up the little Shiki, even the little Rayleigh and Gabon like rivalry, like they argue about who's 1 and 2, and you could probably assume that Rayleigh's 1 and Gabon's 2. And then it seems like Golden Line and Silver Axe, it might be like Golden Axe is the one. Oh, sorry, Golden Line. Golden Line is the one that we hear more about and is more well known, but then Silver Axe is like his counterpart and is known for, his rivalry with Shiki. So you would presume Shiki's stronger than Silver Axe is second, but maybe it's closer than we think. Yeah, and then it's just Axe versus Axe, and then Shiki fights with blades, with swords. Rayleigh fights with swords. I think it'd be a really good matchup. I think that'd be really cool. Whitebeard versus Garling seems to line up. Yeah, this would be all really, really cool to see across the board. And then obviously Roger, Rox, and Garp. I mean, like, Roger, Rox, and Garp, Oda even fucking, like, this fucking chapter, right? Oda's referencing the trio. Isn't he? Hold on. Yeah. Roger, Garp, and Rox. I would not be surprised if we see those three fighting when it comes down to it. And I think ultimately it'll come down to Roger. Maybe Garp will be like backstabbed or something like that, because I don't think Oda's going to make Garp look bad, but I think that is supposed to be Roger's time to shine. Just say Gatling. No, Garling, right? Okay, so yeah, I think that this makes a lot of sense. So, are there things that people wanna change about this? What about Sommers? I don't think Sommers is strong enough that I personally feel from like after Wang Zi onwards, these are maybe not the most important matchups, because it becomes like then it just becomes really difficult to like figure out bit by bit. Maybe Sommers versus Wang Zi or some shit. I don't know, but I feel like Wang Zi probably takes Sommers. Maybe Sommers versus fucking Kaido or something like that. Yeah, I think that after a certain point, we can imagine these characters are strong, but they're not quite the legendary tier that these characters ended up at. Yeah. Right? So Hold on. Yeah, Golden Lion, Silver Axe, Captain John, Wang Zi. Captain John I leave out of that group because I don't think his strength is based off of, or his reputation is based off of his strength. I think it's because he was the one who just like absconded with the treasure. Big Beep Creations, thanks for the 5. Specifically, episode 1 triggers mega copyright, but I'm doing a video on each episode, so are there any arcs you think do a ton of actual foreshadowing? You're doing a video on every episode? I mean, honestly, at this point in One Piece, like, so many arcs do a ton of foreshadowing. Like, fucking, sorry, seeing out the window. I mean, Skypiea is a good one, not to skip or anything like that. But so many, like, you can't skip Water 7 any sloppy. Like, that has a whole bunch of stuff. Even Thriller Bark at this point, we're learning a lot of things. Even fucking Long Ring Longland. Like, that's where the Davy Back Fight is dropped. Existence of Pirate Island is dropped. Existence of Davy Jones is dropped. It's really hard to say what to leave out. So, episode 1 triggers mega copyright. I think you're going to have to go into some, like somebody else I saw mention, go into some React streamer's channel and, like, ask them that question. Because I'm not the person to give you advice on how to do reactions like that. That's just not my thing. Sorry, man, but I appreciate the support. Reverse 6K, thanks for the 10. Rox may already have the Ope Ope no Mi. Check out at the end of 1154. The pose Rox uses is the same as when Law uses Shambles, and they just appear on Elbaf. The mountain is also cut clean in two. Yeah, I mean, I know people were talking about that when it first happened, but then the tricky thing is that Rox was also, he was putting out 2 fingers because he's saying I have 2 questions, right? So it's not necessarily because he was using the Ope Ope no Mi. The fact that the mountain was cut is interesting because Rox doesn't seem to be like a slashing type swordsman. He uses more like force-based swordsman, right? So, but that might have been Shiki or whoever else might have cut the mountain. We don't know. Yeah, I think that these are, honestly, I feel actually low-key confident in these matchups. I think that this really could be what we end up seeing across the board. Because Shiki, I think just everything seems to line up nicely in this sense to me. Because like Roger, Garp, and Rox, they seem like they're going to be the main highlights of this era that Oda wants to focus on. And Oda's talked about how like he hyped up the God Valley battle as that's the time that Roger and Garp had to team up to take down Rox. The specifics we're going to get to see when it comes down to it. I imagine it'll be more Roger-centric than Garp. But I think that'll be, maybe we see that. And then Whitebeard fighting Rayleigh just feels a little random versus Garling fighting Whitebeard. That checks off a lot of boxes. It explains the Scar comment that Whitebeard made to Shanks. And the thing is, we know at this point in time that Oda was planning like stuff from, like, he was planning like endgame stuff. Like, that's pretty much confirmed. So when Oda has Whitebeard say that, like at chapter 430, he's already set up so much stuff that's God Valley related at that point in time that I no longer think that that's like just an offhand comment necessarily. So Garling versus Whitebeard, it makes a lot of sense because it sets up Garling well as a modern day villain because we need some hype for him. So it sets up Garling well as a modern day villain. It gives Garling someone fitting to fight because otherwise who the fuck is Garling fighting? I mean, maybe Garling fights Shiki instead, but like Garling versus Whitebeard feels more meaningful, gives us a lot more context. And then Rayleigh Shiki, that feels like a nice solid fight because like I feel like that scales nicely to how strong a lot of people feel Shiki is in general. Like the type of legend that Oda wrote for him is that he was never like Roger, Whitebeard, Garp level, but he was the next biggest dude from that era, obviously post-Rox era. And that feels nice as like a corresponding opponent for like Dark King Rayleigh. They're both swordsmen, right? It seems to line up. And then Shiki has his own counterpart, Silver Axe, just like Rayleigh has like his own like next person down the line, Gaban. They're both axe users. Seems like it makes sense. Big Mom, maybe we get nothing for Big Mom, but she was right near Saturn at the end of chapter 1096, so I think that'd be good. And that basically checks off all of the major opponents that were on the Roger Pirate side. So that gives everybody the Roger Marines and Celestial Dragon side. Maybe if there's some other Gods Knight that Oda really wants to showcase, maybe we see them against Wang Zi or some shit. Maybe Sommers against somebody. Yeah, but that's my thoughts right now. I don't have any main thoughts about Bogard. I don't know about Bogard. Tiptio Treviso says, I think Whitebeard got scarred by Shamrock, not Garling. Shamrock is the more visually similar one. Shamrock is very, very similar. I just don't know when it would have happened. Because Whitebeard was kind of like not making too many waves later on in life, right? Yeah. That's my thought. Knut Worgen, thanks for the 5. Since Rayleigh is the Dark King and Zoro is the King of Hell, could Sanji get a new epithet similar to Gaban's Mountain Eater, like Island Eater? I mean, that would be cool. It's just that I feel like Pirate Hunter is going to stick because that's what's on fucking bounty posters and stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if King of Hell is never mentioned again outside of Zoro calling out his moves, you know? Crow Stray God, thanks for the 5. How would you rank that top 8 on the Rox crew based on morality? Like least to most evil? Oh, that's a fun question. So least to most evil. If it's morality... Okay, so you just want me to rank the top 8. Least to most evil. I think Big Mom is the most evil from what I've seen. Because Kaido at least has honor. I think Wang Zi might be the most evil because he's the dad of Carabo and Korobo potentially. So Wang Zi might be the most evil. Then Big Mom is pretty damn evil. Kaido is very evil. Like a lot of people forget. Like Kaido has honorable moments, but a lot of people forget that Kaido literally enslaved Wano. Like people get on the Celestial Dragons cases for like having so many slaves and stuff like that. Kaido is a slaver. He's literally like he turned all of Wano's strongest samurai into his slaves and his labor force that toil away in Udon, right? Kaido's a slave master. So Kaido is pretty evil. He just has moments of honor for people that he respects. He doesn't respect losers, as he basically explained. But like, he doesn't want to win a fight through cheap means. He doesn't want to do stuff like that. Whereas Big Mom, she'll like backstab. Like that was her first thing. Like she backstabbed the Germa. She implied to Paris she was going to backstab Kaido at some point. She sailed away from the Rox thing or whatever. I forget. Maybe everybody did though. Okay, anyway. Yeah, so I'd say Wang Zi just seems like the evilest. Maybe he's a really nice dude, but I don't think so. Big Mom Kaido. Then moving on down the scale, I think Shiki. Shiki also had a lot of honor if you go back and read Chapter 0. But I don't remember everything he did in the movie, so maybe I'm misrepresenting Shiki here. But Shiki had honor and shit. Then we get to... I still don't know where to put Rox, because maybe Rox is like worse than Shiki. You know, because like we don't really have full context for Rox just yet. Let's put Rox right there, and then I think we transition over to characters that maybe just weren't even... Oh no, Silver Axe is probably a bad dude. It's hard because like it's more like a like I think really bad is like I think Wang Zi and Big Mom are really bad. I think Kaido's really bad. Then maybe we got a group somewhere in the middle that are like they were probably bad but not like the worst. Like maybe not as terrible like Shiki, Silver Axe, Rox. And then I don't think Gloriosa, like the Kuja Pirates seem honestly really tame. I think the Kuja Pirates today seem genuinely terrible, but the Kuja Pirates back then, they just like looted people and then left, like they weren't, that bad. And then Whitebeard is obviously the best guy. That's vaguely how I would do the morality, if I had to make my call right now. Henchme976 says, based, losers deserve nothing. Big Beep Creations, thanks for the 2. Unprivate the Teapot, want to rank all your theories. No, I can't. Actually, Teapot might be on Morge, it's the Morge Archive, formerly known as the Morge Archives channel. It's Morge Chapter Reviews. So you should be able to find it then. Yeah, all the chapter reviews are on the Morge Chapter Reviews channel. Oh, Grizzly Adams, I missed this. I'm sorry. Grizzly Adams, thanks for the 10. Roger, Rox, and Garp will be a three-way battle and get licks in on each other. Garp will leave the fight maybe to protect citizens from direct threats, noble or pirate. Then Roger versus Rox will finish 1v1. I agree with that view. Because I don't think Oda's going to make Garp look bad, where it's like, oh, Garp just goes down because he can't keep fighting against Rox or something, and then Roger has to finish it. I think it'll be a thing where, like, it is the I think it could be Roger and Garp together initially against each other, then both of them turning on Rox. Then like if I were to script out how I fantasize this fight went, Roger and Garp's basically joining forces after initially butting heads to turn against Rox. I don't know if Roger and Garp even fight or anything. Like maybe they just like see each other, but then they realize there's a bigger fish to fry. But I think Roger and Garp, their initial animosity towards each other will be directed towards Rox. I think Roger, Garp, and Rox will fight. And I think at the start of the fight, Rox will be stronger than both of them. I think that's a really good point that you put. Like maybe Garp will have to exit to help somebody else or do something else or something. Maybe Bagard needs to be saved or some shit. So maybe Garp steps away, or maybe he gets backstabbed by somebody or something like that. We don't know. I imagine Garp will not look bad over the course of the fight. I don't think Oda wants to make Garp look bad. So I think Garp will get his shine, but I think Garp's time will end. And then I think it'll come down to Rox versus Roger. And I think that is when when Roger will surpass Rox. I think Roger will get his big hockey bloom. I think this big Conqueror's hockey that everybody's been talking about for so long, like fucking Kaido talking about it. Garp was telling in the flashback, Ace Luffy Saba flashback, Garp was talking about how Roger would turn into a demon at times. Like I think we need to see Pirate King Roger. I think this whole God Valley incident is like Roger's big W. I think we're going to see that in this battle. So I think it's going to shift from Roger and Garp needing to fight together to fight Rox to basically Garp is no longer involved in the battle. And I think that is when certain things will happen that lead to Roger reaching his full potential, right? So when I say Roger Pirate King level, I think at the start of the fight, he'll be like, I don't know, Yonko level or some shit. And then by the end of the fight, he'll be Pirate King level. Garp, maybe I don't know. I don't want to get too nitty gritty into like the exact levels or whatever, but I'm just saying like, I think when the fight begins, Roger will be at a different level than when the fight ends. And I think he will be able to take Rox 1v1 by the end of it. Delos says, what is the chance of us not seeing God Valley? I think we will see bits and pieces of it one way. I think we'll see a version of God Valley one way or another no matter what. We've technically already seen that with 1096, but obviously something more in depth. Will we see this flashback? I think there's a solid chance that we don't. We could see everything leading up to God Valley, then skip, get to the Loki Herald shit, cover that, then go back to the main story. Also, this is really random, but while I was going through chapters, just like, just to see, like, I was looking at like chapter 907 when is Rox first mentioned, like towards the beginning part of this stream. So you know what's fucking crazy? Look at this. Okay, so a lot of people are speculating like, what's the big villain, final villain? Is it like Blackbeard? Is it Emu? Right? So I already showed this in a previous video. This is very interesting. Okay, so I already showed this in a previous video, but Blackbeard is formally introduced. So the Gorosei are formally introduced to us here in chapter 233. This is when the Gorosei are first shown to us. We have the Gorosei revealed. These are essentially representative of the final villains of the story, right? The Gorosei themselves aren't the final villains, but they're bosses. We just don't know that yet, right? So we have the squad introduced here, right? First time we're seeing celestial dragons, right? These guys essentially represent Emu's rule, right? And then the next chapter, I already showed this in a video, but bear with me for a second. Next chapter, 234, is when Oda officially reveals the Blackbeard Pirates. So 233, he revealed the Gorosei, and basically, by extension, he's setting the foundation for Emu, their secret boss, to be revealed. And then the very next chapter, he's establishing the Blackbeard Pirates. He's fully revealing them for the first time, right? So it's side by side. First, establish the Celestial Dragons. These are the big bad guys we're going to have to deal with, but then also establish the Blackbeard Pirates, and these are the other big bad guys that we're going to have to deal with. Okay? But then, if you move forward in the story, okay? So let's go to chapter 907. Let's go to 907. Okay? 907 is when Rox is first mentioned. I'm the one who's got a score to sell, blah, 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 blah. So in this chapter, this is the first chapter that Rox is revealed. Speaking of Big Mom and Kaido. Oh, you mean Rox? Fucking Viz did it wrong. before Roger was their era, but that was 40 years ago. So the first chapter that Rox is revealed to us is also, it's one chapter off from the very next chapter, right? 908, where Emu is revealed as the king of the world, right? Isn't that fascinating? Isn't that like Oda timed this up like so fucking brilliantly. Like introduced the Gorosei and the Blackbeard Pirates like side by side, same time, same exact time. And then when you're revealing the existence of like even more ancient big bosses, right? Reveal Emu and Rox's existence, same time, side by side. Isn't that fascinating? All leading up to chapter 1154 or whatever, where like Emu and Rox are literally squaring off with each other and being like, I'm going to be the final villain. No, I'm going to be the final villain. No, I'm going to be the final villain. Like, Oda's so fucking smart. Like, the way he plots out big things, macro storytelling, is just not, there's no one close. Macro storytelling and like how well, like, he's been playing the who is the final villain game for the story way further back than we realized. And it's not like the reason fans are still uncertain, like reason readers are so uncertain, is because like he plays both sides so close and so carefully. Like he establishes one at the same time as he establishes the other, and he keeps having it like parallel each other step for step. It's the same way that like Oda revealed Gunko possessed Emu and all that shit like right before the Rox flashback. And it's something like, holy shit, we're dealing with the Emu, the final villain, yada yada. And then the Rox flashback begins, and then pretty quickly, it's like, oh shit, Rox / Blackbeard is the final villain or something. It's really cool. It's just also perfectly synced up, and it makes sense at each part of the story why both sides are being presented. Like it's not random. Like, oh, establish some Emu stuff, so now I need to include some Blackbeard or Rock stuff. It's like, it makes sense. He's revealing the state of the world and the future final villains, like, piece by piece as he needs to, but in sync. Vices, thanks for the 10. Captain John was called a great pirate in RTL magazine. People that gassed that up since Roger, Whitebeard, Shiki, Big Mom, Kaido were called that too. I don't trust outside sources since anime called Zeph a great pirate. Okay. What's RTL magazine? I'm just going to be always skeptical of Captain John until we actually see him fight, because I can't keep getting the image out of my head of like a dude that managed to sneak away with like the treasure everyone was fighting for. But I might be wrong. Ken says, Rox, man, I want him to win, but he loses. Yeah, I'm sad. Okay, any big edits to this, or do we actually feel good about this? Like, how cool would it be if we like just got this straight up correct down the just straight up down the down the line. I feel like there's a solid chance that this is actually just correct. Borderline, I feel like making a video explaining why this is the matchups we're gonna get. I feel like these matchups line up really well. I thought it was just gonna be a crapshoot, but it actually makes a lot of sense. Road to Laughtail, okay, but maybe that just means that's his reputation. He got the reputation as a great pirate again because of his treasure. I'm not going to know if Captain John's actually that dude till we see him fight. Big Beep Creations, thanks for the 2. What's your mic? It sounds really good. It's called a Shure microphone. It's SHURE. But if you're starting out or you're not that big and want something a bit more affordable, then Blue Yeti is like the standard. And then a lot of people move up one notch to the Shure microphones. Julian D says, who brings Kaido down? Maybe fight some God's Knight or something. I feel like Kaido does have like some interesting story that plays out at God Valley. We just don't know yet. Kaido implies that he wants to fight Roger when he charges into the God Valley battle, but maybe Roger low diffs him like he did to Odin or something. Zach D says Garling may be above Yonko but below Pirate King tier. I think at that point the gaps are just not that like. I don't think there's a whole area between Yonko to Pirate King tier, you know? I really think it's like just a spectrum where at a certain point you have a threshold where a character crosses over from like Yonko to Pirate King tier, but like it's not like a huge gap even necessarily at the edges of that threshold. Especially because at this point in time, Pirate King tier, it really is like everybody seems equal, you know? Like We were told Roger and Whitebeard are equal. Okay, cool. And then it was implied Garp and Roger are equal, and now we're basically seeing they would clash equally. So it's like, okay, so Roger, Whitebeard, and Garp were all equal. But then now we're also being shown Rox, and it's like, okay, so Rox is at least as strong as them, right? So now you got 4. And then we got Harold, who ties with the Rox. So now you got like 5. So the tricky thing with Pirate King tier is that right now it's not really a tier. It's kind of like a group of like 5-ish characters that everybody views as basically being just about equal. A tier is more like, like when you talk about Yonko tier, I think people have a wider range of what that could entail. Like everyone's like, yeah, Big Mom's obviously Yonko tier and Kaido's Yonko tier, but that doesn't mean they're exactly equal. Like people tend to I've noticed people generally put a gap between Kaido and Big Mom. Like people happily rank characters that they consider in Yonko tier. Like they'll rank Shanks, Kaido, Dragon, Big Mom, Akainu in there, etc. And people generally don't say they're all equal. Pirate King tier is complicated because it's like, okay, after Yonko tier, there's just a tier, but it's just like, it's not even a tier, it's just like a singular level. Does that make sense? Like everyone, like it's just a group of 5 characters that are exactly Roger level or something. So I think we need to see a little bit more to understand what Pirate King tier looks like. Otherwise, it's not even, you get what I'm saying? Otherwise, it's not a tier. It's just like, I know power scaling shouldn't be like strict numbers or something, but it's similar. If we were to if we were to try to quantify things, it feels like Yonko tier is like, people are just like, okay, characters in terms of strength, if you range from like 90 to 99, then that's Yonko tier. And then with Pirate King tier, it's like, okay, Pirate King tier just means you're level 100, right? You see what I'm saying? So that's the one thing I don't like about how we're defining Pirate King tier so far, because it's just like, we know so little, so it's hard for us to make gaps and stuff like that, but it feels like people are talking about a tier that's really just like a set point of strength, you know? Vices, thanks for the 5. Lol, I'm saying not to take it seriously since we've had weaker pirates like Zeph be called Great Pirate 2 outside of the manga too. I'm refuting it. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. But Road to Laugh I think is like, what do you call? Road to Laugh isn't non-canon, right? I think that's by Oda, right? Arch says 4 people isn't crazy among hundreds. I mean, at this point, I think there's no reason not to put Harold in it, but it's not, so I would call it 5. But it's not just that it's 4 people, it's just that it's not a tier. Like, there's a difference between saying there's 4 people in this tier versus saying the 4 characters are all equal. You get what I'm saying? Because, like, when people talk about, like, is Zoro Admiral tier, or, like, is Sanji First Mate tier, Zoro First Mate tier, like, we're talking about, like, do they belong in a general range? With Pirate King tier, it's basically, like, the question is just, is this character... If I say, is Shanks Pirate King tier, at this point it means, is Shanks equal to Roger? If I say, is Dragon Pirate King tier, it's saying, like, is Dragon equal to Roger, right? That's the thing. Whereas with past examples of tiers, that's not really what it means. It's not just saying, like, oh, is this character not tied in, like, a 5-way tie with all these other characters, you know? Henchme976, thanks for the 2. If Dragon shows up as a cadet, does he clear Kaido? Oh, that's a funny question. That'd be cool to see Dragon and Kaido fighting. Vices says, "Oh, I never knew it was written by Oda." Okay. I forget. I think it might be written by Oda. Ahmed Boots says, Dragon being the same age as Luffy at the start of the story 38 years ago isn't a coincidence in my opinion. I never picked up on that. That's interesting. That's really interesting. Kajirity Dragon says Miyark is Pirate King level. Yeah, basically at this point, if you're saying a character is Pirate King tier, you're saying that they're equal to Roger, Whitebeard, Garp, Rox, Harold. So it's kind of like you've got a range that's like Yonko First Mate range, then you got a range that's like Admiral range, then you got a range that's Yonko range, and then you just have a blank level, which is like equal to Roger, which is Pirate King level. Is kind of what the community perception feels like right now. Because basically if you're like, let's say you're like, I think Shanks is Pirate King level. Like, I think Shanks is Pirate King tier. It's like, okay, do you think Shanks is equal to Roger? If you say no, then what you're really saying is you think Shanks is the top of Yonko tier. Because everybody else that's Pirate King tier is equal to Roger, right? So unless you're saying Pirate King tier, it means like 4 characters that are exactly equal to each other, 5 characters that are exactly equal to each other, and then Shanks. That makes less sense than just saying that Shanks is like at the top of the next tier. This is getting very stupid and very pedantic, I guess, but I don't know if that makes sense. I think I just don't like the fact that we reached a point where like there's this tier where we view all of the characters as exactly equal because they've all been like all Oda shows us is equal clashes with one another. And I'm just like, fuck, like Roger and Whitebeard clash, Roger and Garb clash, Rox and Harold clash. We know that Roger and Rox are going to clash. Like, I don't know. Crow Stray God, thanks to the 5. Hypothetically speaking, who does Luffy have a higher chance of battling with later, Akainu or Blackbeard? That's a really good question. So personally, okay, I would say it like this. In terms of personally allying, like, I could see them fighting side by side against a common foe. I think Blackbeard. I don't think I ever see Luffy doing that with Akainu. In terms of, like, the story organically puts them on the same side. So it's not like we're seeing Luffy and this character fighting, like, doing team attacks and stuff. But rather, they're on the same side of the war. I could see Akainu and Luffy if Akainu breaks off from, like, he is like, okay, the Marines are no longer going to obey the Celestial Dragons because the Celestial Dragons are, like, pieces of shit. And the Marines want to do their own thing. I could see Akainu, like, making the Marines defect. But even then, I don't think he would have his defected Marines side with the Pirates side. So I'd say Luffy and Blackbeard at the end of the day. Big Beep Creations, thanks to the 5. Dragon versus Kaido doesn't happen because we'll never see Dragon fight. Oda forbids it. Also, what specific Sure Mike should I go for? I honestly don't know, man. The editor of this channel is also mainly my production guy and everything like that. Let's see. He suggested I buy this. He got me to buy the Sure Mic and everything like that. I forget what the specific version of it is. I want to say it's like S something 12 or something like that. Yeah, because if I go to my settings here for audio, right? If I go to my settings here, I think it's S2I2. I might be reading the thing not wrong. Sure, Mike S2I2. I think it's the MV7 Plus, maybe. Yeah, maybe that's it. I don't know. I think that might be it. Just some guy with naturally wavy hair. I think Rox also fought Garling before Roger. Oh, that'd be interesting. Any thoughts on why that might have happened? What do you guys think of it being at like God Valley? Asked Salmo. Do you think it's a hodgepodge of everyone fighting at the same time and Luffy, Blackbeard, and Emo are fighting at the same time? Oh, if like the ending? No, I think when it comes to like modern day storylines where like the villains are supposed to lose, the heroes are supposed to win, Oda tends to do full on fights, like full on elaborate fights. It's when Oda just wants to show us like the idea of a big battle that we get things that are more skirmish based. Just look at the mic. Say it on here. Doesn't say anything specific, so I can't help you there. All right, everybody. Spirit of Adventure says, when they say equal to Roger, do you think it means can't defeat each other or Roger wins like 60% of the time? I am still holding out hope that like Roger, when he's like going all out with Conqueror's Haki and stuff, is still like the highest Conqueror's Haki peak outside of like Joy Boy type stuff. But we haven't reached that yet. So I'm curious to see that from Roger. The one thing with this God Valley flashback, with this flashback in general that I'll say, and I'm probably going to wrap stream shortly, the one thing I'll say is that I really, really do hope that if we're getting God Valley here, then we really need more chapters of Roger and the Roger Pirates. because right now it feels like Rox and his crew feel like the protagonists of this flashback. So seeing them go into God Valley, like, if that's Rox and Roger and Garp's like big victory or whatever, then we need to be on their side for that, you know? So that's one of the reasons I think maybe we might get a bit more context of God Valley here, but I don't think we're going to get the full God Valley unless Oda starts devoting even more chapters and screen time to Roger and their group. Because I think when God Valley finally happens and we see it, we need to be coming at it from the side that's going to win. It will feel very weird to feel anything for Roger's victory or whatever if we're coming in really, really pro Rox, wanting to see him succeed, and then just get some quick skirmishes and then Roger beating him. It's like the same applies for like any flashback in One Piece, you know, like you want to read it through the perspective of the protagonists. Crow Stray God, thanks for the 2. You think Odin would have vibed with the Rox Pirates? I think they wouldn't have given him what he's looking for. Odin just wanted adventure. That was it. He just wanted adventure, so he was fine tagging along with Whitebeard and then Roger because they took him to see the world. That's what he wanted. He wanted freedom and adventure. The Rox Pirates in general, they're all in it for like a little bit of power, a little bit of treasure, things like that, things that Odin didn't care for. That does make Whitebeard kind of the odd man out because he doesn't really care about that stuff, but like I think Whitebeard just likes having a group at a certain point. And he's fine being with this group, but he probably knows already that this is not the group he needs to necessarily be with for a long time. But Odin never wanted a group for the sake of having a group. In fact, Odin preferred to be a lone wolf type figure for a long time. Like he rejected the scabbards over and over. He was kind of like, you guys don't follow me around, don't really like this, yada yada. He eventually accepted them once he made it his goal to fix Kuri. So he eventually accepted them to aid him, but he was also fine leaving them. And he didn't join the Whitebeard Pirates because he wanted like a group or a family or anything. He just wanted adventure, and they were a vehicle for adventure. So ultimately, I don't think, like, would he have vibed with them, some of them, like, just talking or hanging out? Maybe. Sure. But would he have, like, wanted to hang around the Rox Pirates? I don't think so, because they don't give him what he's looking for. All right, everybody. Kurokami Najimi says Whitebeard was won by Rox, so maybe that's why he stayed, just out of, like, honor for the Davy Back Fight system. It does really make me wonder, like, was Whitebeard not captain of his own group? Was Shiki not captain of his own group? Or did Rox take the captains from each of those groups? I don't know. All right, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in. This was a fun stream. Wait, last thing. Does anybody know, are we getting the chapter this week or not? Because I heard some news that we might be getting the leaks earlier or something like that. But I know that technically we're supposed to wait till... it's not going to be till next week that we are supposed to get a chapter. It's just I've heard that we might be getting leaks early. Can anyone confirm or deny? Anyone know? Does anyone know? No chapter, just spoilers. We'll get leaks this week, but not till... But usually if we get leaks, then we get the chapter that week, right? Okay. All right. No chapter, but leaks will be early. That's good to know. All right, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in. This was a fun stream. And yeah, I'll talk to you all later. If you want the shirt, hit the link at the top. You can get notified when the shirt is live to purchase, which will be the end of this week. So the shirt orders will be available